Today, we're going to be diving into the disturbing FNAF fan game Iceberg, taking a look at all of the most disgusting, disturbing, dark, and mysterious games to ever grace the internet. Strap in, this one is gonna be crazy. What is the most disturbing thing you've ever seen while playing a FNAF game? That's a serious question. I really want you to think about it. I'm sure a lot of people are already thinking of the third tape from the original Dormitibus, but that's not quite what I mean. I mean, what's the most disturbing thing you've seen? Literally seen with your own two eyes, or one if you're half blind. Let me cut to the chase. The game we'll be talking about today is the Fazbear Tomb, made by Maroon Fox, who, fun fact, I've actually known for many years, and he reached out to me to ask me to voice some of the characters in this game. Rest assured, that's not why I'm talking about it. The Fazbear Tomb has some of the most shocking imagery I've ever seen in any FNAF game ever. So let's waste no time and jump right into it. With nowhere better to start than night one is where we will start, and we actually get to walk into the building instead of just being dropped right into our office, which I always think is pretty cool. Starting outside, we enter the building and walk into the dining area where we can see Bonnie and Freddy. Chica is also on stage, you can tell because you can see her feet, but unfortunately the rest of her body is blocked by Freddy's enormous belly, which is just not ideal. Moving to our office, we sit down and I notice something immediately which I think is really cool. That being, instead of turning like in most FNAF games, you can actually turn 360 degrees inside of your office. It's such a small touch, but I really like it. Moving on to the tools at our disposal. There really isn't much to be said here. We have cameras and 3 doors to our office. 2 of the doors can be held shut, but the third door cannot, instead allowing us to play dead outside of it. Why can't we play dead next to all of the doors? That I don't really have the answer to. Oh yeah, we can also shine our light in all of the doorways, so that's nice too. We get a phone call from the phone guy, pretty typical stuff. He gives us the normal spiel of how to deal with the characters, which might make you think they'll all be activated on this night, but you'd be wrong. For some reason, we're told how to deal with every character on night 1, even though only 1 threat is introduced on this night. Not really sure why, but whatever. Oh yeah, and one more super cool thing about this game, the phone guy is played by me, so that was super fun.
To make sure he doesn't get you, you must... Well, that is all the training for today. Good luck on your shift and have a killer time at Freddy's.
There's 3 doors. What do you mean? What do I have to do? Also, why am I'm talking to myself? It feels weird. Moving on to the 1 threat this night introduces, that being Bonnie, who is as basic can get. Bonnie's goal is to attack the 1 door in your office with no actual door on it. He'll wander around the cameras before getting there. You can flash your light to double check that he is indeed there, and once you know he is, just play dead. Phone guy says to do so for 10 seconds. Kind of odd how he just knows how long you're supposed to do that for, but I'm gonna look past it. Something I'm not a super huge fan of in this game is just how long the nights are, especially night 1. You'll notice that each minute in this game is about 1.5 seconds in real life. And with a night like night 1, where only Bonnie is active, and at the same time during my playthrough, which you can see over on my second channel, Dxtr Black, I actually never even had Bonnie come to my door, and I was playing Raid Shadow Legends the whole time. It just leads to this night feeling like a slog. But after making it to 6 AM, we complete the night and we can talk about the post-night 1 minigame, which may just be one of the most shocking things I've ever seen in my life. During this minigame, we have to take apart Bonnie because there's been complaints of a bad odor coming from him. We start by opening his head, removing his arms, and cracking open his torso. Removing the plate, we see this. That's right. We actually get to see the corpse of one of the missing children stuffed inside of Bonnie. Truly one of the most gruesome things I've ever seen in a FNAF game before. I don't think any other game that I know of has ever actually directly shown you the bodies of the children. So needless to say, seeing this was crazy. After that shocking reveal, we get a very odd cutscene. A large amount of words are said, but I can't really make out most of it. I'll play it here with subtitles of what I could make out, but I'll need your guys' help in the comments to decipher everything.
but even yet I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker, and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well?
Night two, here we are. Let's just say action from these robots picks up quite a bit on this night. Night 2 only introduces one new threat, that being Chica, as I'm sure you could have guessed. And I'm gonna be honest, Chica brings up a really big glaring flaw that this game has. That being that the gameplay is boring as fuck. But let's explain what Chica does first. Chica will move around the cameras until making her way to your second door. Once she approaches, you can flash your light to check she's there, and if she is, hold the door closed until you hear her go away. This is also the first night I actually had Bonnie attack me, and something I noticed about these two is just how long it takes for both of them to leave your door. It's like a solid 10 seconds, at least. Which, yes, I know the phone guy said, but I didn't think he literally meant it. But can you notice the issue this game already has? Both Bonnie and Chica do the exact same thing. And while sure, you could argue that Bonnie and Chica do the same thing in a lot of games, but when the cast of characters is so small, I think that should make you more inclined to make everyone do something unique. This franchise has been around for over a decade. I would like to see the community do something different, and I feel like this game tries to hide the fact that everything is the same. Sure, you have 3 doors, but 2 of them are just a close them when someone is there mechanic, and the other is a play dead mechanic, which by the way is literally exactly the same as holding the door closed, except there's no animation, the screen just turns black. And this is what I mean. It feels like the game is trying to make you think that Bonnie has a different mechanic from Chica because it calls it something different. But in reality, you're just holding control for both of them, so it feels a bit disingenuous. But on the other hand, the character AI has definitely ramped up on this night. During night 1, I was never attacked by Bonnie the entire time. This time around, I was attacked by him a good handful of times, and Chica tried to rail me a couple of times too. So at least during this night, I couldn't play another game at the exact same time like I could on night 1, which is a good sign of progress. Oh yeah, I should probably mention the phone call on this night too, since it is pretty interesting. It seems like a previous night guard was able to intercept the phone's connection. Don't ask how, just accept it. He talks about how the robots are out to kill. We already knew that. And he explains Foxy and Freddy's mechanics, which is good since the phone guy on night 1 cut out before he could finish talking about Freddy and how he worked. I'm obviously not going to tell you how to deal with Freddy and Foxy right now since they aren't even active at this point, so let's just move on to the post-night 2 minigame. Something I want to quickly preface is that technically these are not post-night minigames, they're technically pre-night minigames, but I'm so used to talking about the minigames after talking about the night. Oh, just know that this minigame I'm about to talk about isn't a post-night 2 minigame, but is really a pre-night 3 minigame. Who really cares though? It's all in the same order. In this game, we play as a very slow, fat child. Not based. The most horrendous, creepy-looking 8-bit spring Bonnie I've ever seen in my life appears to tell us he has a gift for us. A very special one. We follow him through 2 rooms and see a gift box on the ground, but Spring Bonnie is nowhere in sight. Upon approaching the box, Spring Bonnie sprints at Mach 46 in our direction and presumably murks us, ending the minigame. So, not nearly as interesting as last night's minigame, but maybe this showed what happened just before what we saw in that last minigame. Or who knows, maybe this is one of the other dead children altogether. Right now it's hard to say, but let's continue on to night 3. On night 3, I was expecting one new character to be introduced, since it seems we're only going to be getting the 4 characters from the first FNAF game. Introducing one every night makes sense to me. But no, we have 2 threats to talk about on this night. So let's start with the least interesting one, Freddy. Freddy works, quite literally, in the exact same way as Bonnie and Chica, with the exact same attack pattern and the exact same way of dealing with him. He will attack your third door, except he doesn't like to be flashed by your light. So if you ever do, he'll kill you instantly, even if you close the door directly afterwards, which doesn't make sense. So this brings up a question of how you're supposed to know when Freddy is there. Well, this game tells you that you'll be able to hear Freddy breathing when he's outside of your door. However, I was unable to hear the breathing, ever. Or, if I was able to hear the breathing, I was unable to tell it was breathing, since there are so many other fucking random noises that happen constantly throughout this game. You wanna know why I never heard the breathing sound effect? I checked the code of this game myself, and yeah, it's literally never programmed to play the breathing sound. Here is the code for the breathing sound. You see that start sound, pick random 1 to 4? There are 4 breathing sounds, and this plays one of those at random. You'll notice that these 2 blocks aren't attached to anything, and I never moved them. By the way, there is nothing that triggers these 2 blocks. This is all of the code for Freddy reaching your door. You'll notice a few weird things about it. That it starts by running a broadcast for Bonnie arriving. Spoiler alert, I have no idea why it's called Bonnie Arrive. The only thing this broadcast does is run a function in another sprite that plays footstep sounds. The other weird thing you'll notice about this code is that, yes, it actually does start sound, but not sounds 1 to 4. Instead, sounds 5 to 10. Well, what are sounds 5 to 10? You might ask. Well, they're footstep sounds. All of them. Sounds 5 through 10 are all footstep sounds. But why the fuck would you even need to play footstep sounds if right before that block you have the Bonnie Arrive broadcast that plays fucking footstep sounds? And why are there breathing sounds in this game that are never used? Pretty much making it impossible to know when Freddy is ever at your door. I have no idea. And yes, by the way, I checked everything in the AI management code, and nowhere besides those 2 blocks that are detached and never called that I showed earlier does the code ever call for sounds 1 through 4 to ever be played. I have no idea what's going on. But worry not, I found a strategy for dealing with Freddy. We know because of the Bonnie Arrive script that whenever any character shows up at the door, we'll hear footsteps. Well, whenever I heard footsteps, I'd check Bonnie's door and Chica's door, since I could safely flash my light on them. If I didn't see either of those 2, then I'd know it has to be Freddy who's at my door, and, fun fact, Freddy doesn't appear to make footstep sound cues when he leaves either, so that's just great. Anyways, let's talk about the other threat this night introduces, Foxy. Foxy is pretty simple, but he is different from the other 3, thankfully. Foxy is in Pirate's Cove. Occasionally, throughout the night, he'll start humming like he tends to do. When he does, all you have to do is go to his camera and flash him with your camera light a few times and he'll close the curtain. So he doesn't even really do what normal Foxy does. Not that that's an issue, just thought I'd point it out. So, here's what the core gameplay loop boils down to right now. Start the night, literally sit there and do nothing until you hear Foxy humming or footstep sounds. Deal with Foxy if you hear him, and if you hear footstep sounds, check Bonnie, then Chica. Deal with either of them if you see them, and if you don't see them, close Freddy's door until you hear the next sound cue. Repeat for 8 fucking minutes, since each minute in this game is a second and a half, and you'll beat the night. Meaning we can move on to the post-night 3 minigame, technically pre-night 4 minigame. This is just a cutscene, but a creepy one at that. The marionette box opens, and the marionette crawls out with the most disgusting sound I've ever heard. She offers us a gift box and says that if we take it, we'll be gifted new life, and that he'll never be able to hurt us again. This tells me that we're the soul of a child in this cutscene, and of course, the marionette is reanimating us. We accept the gift, and the marionette crawls back into its sticky-sounding box, and we move on to Night 4. Night 4 adds nothing new to the gameplay loop. However, it is where I noticed a plethora of bugs in this game so horrific it's hard to describe. And pretty much every single bug stems from Freddy and the fact he will literally just ignore your door. He will also sometimes not play his footstep sound cue when he gets to the door. Oh yeah, and this part isn't a bug, but multiple characters can attack at the same time, guaranteeing that you lose the night because of RNG. That sounded rather loud. Good thing I went and checked. I said, good thing I went and checked. Fuck! Okay, well, you can't put Bonnie and Freddy there at the same time, dude. That's literally impossible. Impossible to deal with. Really, bro? Bonnie. Fuck off. What the fuck, dude? This game fucking reeks. Holy shit. It's a broken fucking mess. So yeah, doesn't that just look like a ton of fun? Because it wasn't. Anyways, since there isn't actually anything new to talk about, we can move on to night 5, which actually does introduce something pretty sick. But of course, before we talk about it, we need to talk about the pre-night 5 minigame. It's a pretty shitty, boring minigame. It's literally just the opening to FNAF 2. We're in the POV of Freddy, and we can look back and forth at Bonnie and Chica. Nothing super crazy or groundbreaking happens. We don't even see the marionette like we do in FNAF 2. Alright, who cares? Now we can move on to night 5. Well, let's just say that night 5 is something different, acting as this game's boss fight night. Every character we've seen up until this point has been disabled, and we hear the doors to the entrance of the building open, only to see none other than William Afton inside of the Spring Bonnie suit enter the building. That's right, the boss fight is with Afton. Why is he here? I have no idea. Is it ever explained to us why he wants to come kill us? Just a security guard that he himself likely hired? Not at all. But are we gonna complete it nonetheless? Yes. Honestly, calling this night a boss fight is pretty generous, as Afton does not do anything interesting or different from the rest of the characters. He can attack 2 of your 3 doors, and I'll talk about why in a bit. He can attack the 2 doors that, well, actually have doors. Obviously, when he's there, just close the door and he'll leave. However, Afton is faster than every other character we've seen so far, so tracking him on the cameras to tell which door it is he actually went to is really important, since you won't have time to check both doors without him killing you. Once again, like Freddy, even if the fucking door is closed. Hello? Ah, bitch! The door's closed, dude. The bugs in this game, they're unbearable. They're unbearable. Unbearable, dude. The door was closed. Now, you may be wondering, why doesn't Afton attack the door that Bonnie attacks? The one with no door? Well, that would be because it'd be impossible to defend yourself. You might think that that would make it the perfect door for him to attack, but from a gameplay standpoint, you really can't have him attack that door, now can you? Because he's not going to believe that you're already dead, since he's a human and not a stupid fucking robot. So this once again brings up my point, why even make the first door's mechanic playing dead? Why not just make it another door? It would literally function the exact same way, plus it would give Afton another means of attack and make his boss fight actually make a little bit more sense and slightly more difficult. But let's even look past all of that. What happens once you beat the night? Well, get this. Afton enters the fucking office anyways. So like, what is the point of whatever we just did? Clearly he has the power to be able to get into your office regardless. This kind of feels more like what we did throughout the night didn't really matter, which, by the way, the nights in this game are way too fucking long for how boring the mechanics are. A game like Next Week at Freddy's can have really long nights because there's a lot of variables that can change throughout the night to make it interesting for a long time. But when every single character in the game is dealt with in the exact same way, 8-minute nights are just completely unnecessary and make the game feel like a drag. But like I said, after you complete the night, Afton gets into the office and we get the following cutscene.
I found you at last. Did you really think you could hide? Did you really believe that you could cower away from me? I own you. I own this place. This is my kingdom, and I shall take you to my hell.
So there you have it. The marionette appears from the fucking ceiling. I guess she was just hiding up there the whole night, and she sets off the spring locks in Afton's suit. Which, by the way, once again, I have no idea why he's even wearing the spring lock suit. The robots are not even activated on this night, so it's not like he's trying to disguise himself from them. If anything, wearing the suit you killed them in would probably just piss them off. I'm not really sure. William dies in front of our eyes, and the Fazbear Tomb comes to a close. Overall, I think it's pretty clear that there's a lot I see wrong with this game. However, I don't think it's necessarily bad. It's clear a lot more care went into the storytelling and the designs, which I can appreciate. I know Maroon Fox is already working on the second game, but if you're watching this, Maroon, which I'm pretty positive you are, you need to fix the problems I mentioned in this video before you release the second one, because this game was incredibly frustrating and it did not need to be. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think this is actually the coolest FNAF fan game of all time? Let me know in the comments below. In my Fred and Pals video, I asked you guys if you had to survive any official FNAF game, which would you choose and why? And my favorite answer is this one by Professionally Bizarre. They said FNAF 2, and I agree, because realistically, you could just wear the mask the entire night and do everything else at the same time. 2025 has been a crazy year for Five Nights at Freddy's fan games so far. We've had incredible titles such as Banshee, Five Nights at Frederick's, and Freddy's Reanimated. It's honestly incredible to see how much this community is thriving after 11 years of the original game's release. Somehow, people are still able to take the original concept and add new and unique experiences to it, and are somehow able to retell the same story in a way that's interesting every single time. It really goes to show just how much love this community has for the original source material. Today, we're going to be looking at one of the newest FNAF fan games to release, one that has built up a lot of hype and certainly lived up to it, with mechanics so unique that I've never seen before. So join me today as we dive into the twisted world of Locked at Freddy's. Locked at Freddy's begins with an opening cutscene. We introduce ourselves as Elliot Woods, and we begin to tell the story of the most terrorizing night of our entire lives, starting with us taking a job offer at Freddy Fazbear's as a security job. When we pull up to the building, we notice a purple car parked outside. Thinking nothing of it, we walk inside the building and get knocked out by a man in a bunny suit. Wake up. Oh shit! So this is about to be cool. Oh, what the fuck? What the fuck? We wake up inside of a Springlock suit. By completing a quick time-based minigame, we escape certain death, only to realize the real amount of trouble we're actually in. The man who attacked us, presumably William Afton, begins talking to us through the intercom system. He tells us what we're in, and that if we can survive until 6 AM, we might get, quote, something special. I'm hoping it's that rabbit deer. Oh, Jesus Christ. And with that, the night begins. Something we need to immediately get out of the way is that this game, technically speaking, only has one night. However, the way a normal FNAF game would call a night, Locked at Freddy's calls an hour. So each hour of the night basically acts as its own night. I made that sound way more complicated than it actually is, but who cares? Let's start by talking about the main mechanic that you're going to be aware of, that being the Springlock suit attached to your bones. Whenever you move in this game, that meaning looking from side to side, a small indicator bar in the bottom left corner will detect your movement. If it fills up all the way to the top, you will die. At first, I thought this was going to be the most devastating mechanic ever introduced into any FNAF game ever. However, during my playthrough, I figured out how it actually works. This bar increases based on how much X-axis movement your mouse has. So if you slowly turn from one side of the office to another, it will increase very quickly. However, if you were to say, whip your mouse to one side of the screen really fast so that the screen has to catch up to your mouse's position, since you didn't move your mouse for very long, the bar will not increase very much at all. So this is definitely the route to go. Two more interesting mechanics that go along with the Springlock suit. First, when you open the camera, the bar will pause wherever it's at. This means if your bar is halfway increased and you open the camera, even though your player isn't moving, the bar will not decrease like it usually does when you're not moving. And only once you pull the camera down will it begin to decrease. The final pretty poopy mechanic the Springlock suit brings takes place when you interact with the doors. The doors in this game work the same as the doors in FNAF 4. That being, you have to manually hold them closed. There is also a big lever next to the door you can pull to shine a light in the hall. Now, This final amazing and not ass-clenching mechanic has everything to do with interacting with these two very important pieces of the game. If you interact with either the light lever or the door itself whilst your movement bar is yellow, you will be entered into the spring lock minigame from the beginning of the game, and if you fail it, you lose. Now, completing this minigame isn't difficult. What's so annoying about having to do it is knowing that if you're needing to close the door, you probably don't have time to sit and do a minigame. Is this mechanic cool? Yes, I think it is, but that doesn't stop it from making me want to ride a bike with no seat. Now, with that out of the way, we can actually talk about the first threat this game introduces. Bonnie. What? Oh god, oh god. Why is he wearing a hat? Who gave him the fucking hat? Oh my god, look at how fast that power goes down. Of course, he's probably the most basic character of the roster, but that's typically how he is, and that's just how we like him. I'm kind of breathable a little bit. Oh my god, dude, what's wrong with me? Bonnie will quietly make his way to your left door, and let me be clear, him not making noise is a big deal, as sound cues are going to be very important throughout this game. Once Bonnie reaches your door, all you have to do is hold it closed. You will hear him bang on the door and then start breathing really hard like your mom does when she walks up a flight of stairs at a below reasonable pace. Once he starts breathing, you're free to let go of the door. However, if you ever turn the light on while he's at the door breathing, you will get eviscerated. After completing 12 a.m., 1 a.m. will begin, because that's how time works. Insane that I have to explain this to you. During the chat with William, he explains how we're the second person to be in this game. When asked who the first is, William responds that his name was Michael, and that he's currently in the back room stuffed inside of a suit. Some of the most brutal stuff, let me tell you. But before we can ask any more questions, he tells us that someone new is activating and the hour really begins. This hour introduces Chica, who does not act the same as Bonnie in the slightest, which is honestly really nice to see. Chica, of course, attacks your right door, except she actually is much more aggressive. Much more of a dom, which I would usually be chill with, except unfortunately for me, this is the ugly Chica, not bad bitch toy Chica. Once Chica gets to your door, unlike Bonnie, she is actually kind enough to leave us a sound cue. When you hear it, you will need to hold the door closed. She will then start pounding on it like your mom pounds down Twinkies. Whenever you hear the pounding stop, you must quickly open the cameras and use the alarm button I haven't mentioned so far. When you use the alarm button, an alarm will play. Who would have thought? And it will go off for 10 seconds. Use this once Chica stops banging to scare her away from your office. It doesn't matter which camera you use it on either, so that's really fortunate for us, the player. This game will eventually become pretty intense, and that will become more apparent once you notice how different each character really is. During the next phone call, William tells us the story of the children, how he murdered all 5 of them and placed their bodies into the suits so that the police wouldn't find them, explaining that the company shut down because of this and that he got away with it. He mentioned that there was still one single thing that could put a wrench in his plans, but he says he locked her in a box. I want you to keep this line in mind, as it will become very important later. For now, we have to talk about a new threat. This new threat is Foxy, a character I honestly thought was going to be a whole lot worse than he actually was. Foxy does exactly what you think he does. He has multiple stages he will move through in Pirate's Cove before charging at your door. This time around, however, he can attack either side, needing you to rely on sound cues to figure out which side he'll try to hit. Once you know which side he's on, all you have to do is hold the door closed. When you hear him bang on it, quickly turn the light on to scare him away from the door and he'll run back to Pirate's Cove like a little piss baby. Something really good to note about Foxy is that he really doesn't demand your attention at all, and that was a surprise to me. Unlike in FNAF 1, where watching Foxy on the camera stalls him, he will move at the same rate whether you're looking at him or not in this game. So all you really have to do is listen out for his sound cue and you'll be well in the clear. Just hope he doesn't attack when Bonnie is breathing, because if he does, then say goodbye to your anus because you're not getting it back. During the hour 4 phone call, Elliot calls William out for being an idiot, because what does killing 5 kids do for anyone? William turns into a piss baby and pulls some pain levels of, "You don't know the kind of pain I've been through," emo antagonist. William says he lost everything, and that the most important thing in his life got taken away. Knowing the FNAF lore, he's probably referring to his daughter. When Elliot asks how killing children fixes that, William deflects and the hour begins. Freddy is the next threat introduced. Freddy, of course, has to introduce my least favorite mechanic of all time. Occasionally, throughout the night, Freddy will laugh as loud as he possibly can like the asshole at the movie theater. When he does, do you want to take a wild stab at what you have to do? If you said find him on the fucking cameras, you'd be right, god damn it! Once you find Freddy on the cameras, you will have to play the alarm on whichever camera he is at, which will make him leave. But of course, as I'm sure you could have guessed, this does bring up another issue. Now we have two characters that make use of the same mechanic, and this mechanic has a very long 10-second cooldown. So let's imagine a sick and twisted scenario where Freddy does a little giggle. Okay, it's time to go look for him. So you do exactly that. Just then, the moment you press the alarm button, Chica starts blowing up your door's asshole like the 4th of July. Well, shit. Let's hope Chica takes a long time to start pounding on my glass, because otherwise she's gonna start pounding on my ass. Luckily for us, however, it does appear this was thought about while the game was being designed, because after Chica finishes pounding on your door, she usually won't start pounding on your window for a couple seconds. And in all honesty, there's nothing more satisfying in this game than using the alarm to take care of Freddy and Chica at the same time. Two birds, one stone type shit. The 4 a.m. phone call has William turn into the Joker, talking about a brand new toy he's created in the workshop. Says he made it specifically for occasions like this. What could he be talking about, I hear you ask? Great question, dear, honest, innocent, and defenseless viewer. Allow me to answer that burning question for you. Going into the workshop where you can find the corpse of Michael, Chip will jump onto the camera. Literally, this motherfucker got hops. Kinda like your mom in the drive-thru at Taco Bell. Seriously, you tell her, vamos a Taco Bell y pidamos todo, and she starts hopping. You wanna take a solid guess as to what this guy introduces? If you said my second least favorite mechanic, ding ding ding, you'd be exactly right. Chip introduces a music box mechanic. If you're not winding it throughout the night, he'll insert his entire forearm inside of you. But Chip is an animal, and I know a lot of you guys are furries, so you might actually enjoy that. Freaks. You're all freaks. Freaks! During the hour 5 chat, we call William a bitch. We tell him he's hiding from us. And when we say that, he gets an idea that we're not going to be a huge fan of. Nothing new is added during this hour, except I just lied straight to your face. Within the first minute of the hour, you can hear a car pulling up outside of the building, and William himself enters. What the fuck was that horn? Who's this car I'm hearing? Is he here? He's already here. The yellow rabbit can come from any side. Close the door and wait for it to leave. Every knock the door affects the spring locks. If you hear the sound of the wind-up toy, prepare for an attack. What? That's right. The final threat introduced is William himself in the spring lock costume, who, spoiler alert, is the guy that knocked us out at the beginning of the game. I know, crazy, hard to believe, right? So let's ask ourselves, is his mechanic going to be fun? Well, it's actually pretty unmemorable, honestly. William will make his way to either one of your doors at random. When he arrives, he will make a sound cue to let you know he's there. How kind! Once he's at your door, all you have to do is hold it closed and he'll give it that Chica treatment, pounding on it by slapping it with his big fat stupid balls. However, something a little bit different from Chica is that his big fat stupid balls are so powerful that they will actually cause your spring lock meter to increase every time he bangs on the door. And while sure, that may sound cool, but due to the fact that you won't be moving your mouse during this because it's sitting on the door holding it closed, it really only serves to look cool and make William feel intimidating way more than it serves to actually be a mechanic. But that's about it. Beat this night and you're home free. Oh wait. Shit. William, what are you doing here? Hey, buddy, stay back. You stink like shit. Hey, don't you take one more step. Hey, don't you do it.
Now, you'll be trapped here forever. But I am you. Rest here in the darkness.
What the fuck? So yeah, we got killed by William even though we won, and were stuffed into the Chip suit, which is clearly what he meant when he said he made Chip specifically for situations like this. Soon after, we're given the message, "You can fix everything, find castle," with a crayon drawing of a castle shown. This is honestly really appreciated. I personally have no problem with the true ending of a game being a little out of the way, as long as it doesn't require me to repeat a massive section of the game, if not the entire game all over again. Secret of the fucking Mimic! So this game actually giving us a massive hint on how to find it is actually really refreshing. Going back to 5 AM, if you go to camera 5 and click on the castle drawing, you will be thrown into a night minigame. And now I get to talk about it because this minigame was actually pretty fun. Upon loading into the minigame, you will learn the two most important mechanics, attacking and not attacking. Whenever you attack, you will swing a little lance, and whenever you don't attack and are moving, your curse meter will go up. If your curse meter increases too high, it will turn yellow and you won't be able to attack. Does this remind you of something? Because it should, as it's literally a metaphor as to what we're going through. We are in a suit, but instead of it being armor, it's a spring lock. Whenever we move, our danger increases and prevents us from using our only means of defense. And spoiler alert, the rest of this minigame is a metaphor as well. Very early on, we walk past a big purple locked door. Obviously, we'll have to come back to this eventually, so keep it in mind. Continuing to travel, we enter a room with our first boss battle. Being unable to fight this one, it's completely about not being seen. Hide behind pillars as he passes so that we aren't noticed. At the end of the hall, we see a child locked inside of a cage, and it's our job to free them. We see it's locked via a code, and we have to count the numbers of each colored balloon to get it. Don't question it, it's a FNAF game, it's weird, it's dumb, whatever, just move on. Afterwards, getting the key to the cage and freeing the child. This obviously being a metaphor for saving one of the missing children. The next boss we face is a bit more difficult, Brute. He has a shield and we can only strike when it's down. This weird, sad-looking bunny cloud above our head will occasionally take a piss and we have to dodge the stream. Meanwhile, hentai tentacles will occasionally come up from the ground. Dodging these is actually kind of difficult, as the way they move is completely random, so this fight was a bit frustrating. After beating Brute, we get another key and save another kid. We continue to explore, finding a massive furnace. You should know by now, if you're familiar with my channel, that pretty much nothing is an accident, so you know this will almost certainly be important later. The next boss we face is the Mechanism. He slides across the ceiling and will shoot homing missiles at you, all the while whipping a laser around that you have to dodge as well. Honestly, this fight looks a lot more intimidating than it actually is. After beating him, bingo was his name-o, another key drops. The final boss we go up against is the Executioner. This guy has got a massive axe, or a hammer, I can't really tell. When he slams it on the ground, it leaves a shockwave behind that you have to dodge. The Piss Goblin is back up in the sky, and the hentai tentacles make a return as well. Honestly, this is probably the easiest of the boss fights. It just takes the longest because this guy has a lot of health. After beating him, he drops the final key and we can leave. However, I would highly recommend you don't leave, because if you want to get the true ending, we have something else to do. If you take all of the keys we've collected so far and take them back to the furnace, you can melt them together into a single purple key. Then, using this key, you can go all the way back to the start where the purple door was, and now you can unlock it, because that's how a door and a key work. Heading inside, we find a box, the same box William mentioned putting her inside of. The box opens, and the marionette reveals herself. She thanks us for setting her free and says that it's now her job to set us free. We need to survive until 6 AM. Now, if we complete night 6 one more time, near the end of the night, the marionette will appear in our office and we get one last cutscene. The marionette takes off our suit and we go to take revenge on William once and for all. Hello! Don't be afraid of me. I will save you. Whoa, whoa, bitch! I took off your suit. You are free. We will take revenge on him. Oh, What the heck, bro? Oh shit! Oh. A word? Oh, word. Oh shit, where'd he just go to? All alone in the darkness. Oh, hello. Oh yeah, I'd be fucking shitting myself, bro. We are already here. We are waiting for you. Oh shit. Whoa, what the hell? Oh damn. Oh damn. Dude, yuck. Oh shit, what the fuck? It's time to end this. A tag bucket of FNAF assemble type shit. Oh, his spring locks. Oh my god. Oh shit. Oh shit, his spring locks. They're locking up, bro. Oh. Oh shit. There he goes. Holy fuck. Oh damn. What the fuck? Hell yeah, shut his ass down, bro. Now you will be locked here. Forever. What the fuck? And there we have it. An ending where we survive and all the kids can finally rest. Locked at Freddy's tells its story in a way that feels like a personal confession. A night one man survived and isn't entirely sure how. The whole thing is framed around Elliot Woods, a guy who moved to Hurricane and took the first job he could find because he needed money. And unfortunately for him, that job happened to be at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, which is already a red flag in this universe. But the important detail here, something a lot of players miss, is that Elliot never actually becomes a night guard. He never makes it to the office. He never even starts his job. He's attacked the moment he walks inside. A man in a rabbit suit, clearly William Afton, kidnaps him, drags him off screen, and forces him into a spring lock suit. Not a costume, not a mascot, a torture device. You're waking up inside a machine built to kill you if you breathe wrong. And that's where the story really begins. Not as an employee, but as a victim William chose for reasons we don't fully know. And for the entire game, William is basically treating the situation like a twisted interview. He's watching Elliot, studying him, testing how long a person can last when trapped inside a spring lock coffin. The animatronics aren't really the point. They're just environmental hazards William unleashes to make the test harder. He talks to you through an intercom all night, and this is where we get the real story. William admits everything. He killed 5 children, he hid the bodies in the suits, he shut down the location, and he never got caught. But the part that actually matters, the part Locked at Freddy's is built around, is the one thing that did scare him: the marionette. He says there was one single thing that could ruin all of his plans, something strong enough to fight back, and he said he'd locked her in a box. That's the core conflict of this game. The night isn't just William tormenting Elliot, it's William making sure the marionette stays powerless. Every time he talks, you can hear how confident he is. He's got Elliot trapped. He's killed before, and he thinks this is all going according to plan. But something changes as the night progresses. When Elliot pushes back, asks why murdering children fixes anything, William actually loses composure. He starts ranting about loss and how he had something important taken from him. There's a reason people compare this game's version of William to Saw's Jigsaw. This isn't William in the middle of the FNAF timeline. This is William trying to prove something, trying to justify his pain by putting someone else through it. And that's why he comes to the restaurant at 5 a.m. He's not coming to kill Elliot because he's winning. He's coming because he wants the ending to be personal. He kills him, stuffs him into the chip suit, and considers the night finished. Another victim contained, another spirit silenced, another threat buried before it can become a problem. But the moment Elliot dies, the entire story flips, because that's when the children finally make contact. The message, "Find Castle," isn't just a clue. It's the kids reaching out. It's the souls William tried to control doing the one thing he never prepared for, fighting back from inside his own game. And the Cursed Night minigame is their language, their world. It's not literal, it's symbolic. It's Elliot navigating a space built out of memories and trauma the kids experienced and helping them break down the barriers William left behind. Every boss you defeat represents another spirit being freed. Every key you collect is a child William tried to silence, locking them away. The furnace is where you merge them, giving them the strength they need to unlock the one door William never wanted opened: the box. And inside that box is one entity who can actually challenge him: the marionette, freed not by the police, not by Henry, not by the spirits, but by Elliot, the victim William assumed wouldn't survive 6 hours. She thanks him, she understands what William did to him, and she chooses to help. That ending scene, the puppet removing the suit and freeing Elliot from the spring locks, is the first time in the entire game that Elliot has any control over what's happening to him. He's no longer one more body in a suit, he's a survivor. And with the spirits awakened, the puppet free, and William still in the building, the true ending leaves us with the moment William has always feared. For once, he's not the hunter. Elliot is. Locked at Freddy's ends right where William's downfall begins, with the victim standing up, the souls awake and united, and the puppet finally out of the box. But as far as I'm aware, that's all Locked at Freddy's has to offer. Overall, I think this game serves as a very interesting retelling of the original story. The gameplay is very fun, and somehow managed to make me not hate my two most hated mechanics in FNAF history. Everything in this game feels responsive yet restrictive in just the right way, and all of the characters work together perfectly in tandem with one another, something a lot of fan games just aren't capable of. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think this game is actually just really underwhelming? Let me know in the comments below. In my Freddy's Reimagined video, I asked you guys what you think the scariest FNAF game is and why, and my favorite answer is this one by Jack Univa. They said Graveyard Shift at Freddy's, and I think we can all agree in saying that game is pretty terrifying in a plethora of ways. Recently, I've been covering a lot of very well-known fan games on this channel. Five Nights at Candy's, Pop Goes, and Animatronic Memories are probably names you're all familiar with. Recently, I've been looking for a FNAF game to cover that I personally had never heard of, and today I've definitely found one. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's super weird, but however, it does have its charm and an amazing story. So, let's waste no time and hop right into Tales of the Bunnyman. Tales of the Bunnyman opens with a cutscene that reminds me a lot of the old official Five Nights at Freddy's trailers, specifically Five Nights at Freddy's 2. We get several shots of the pizzeria interlaced with pieces of dialogue explaining the exposition of the story. We play as a man named Vincent Baldwin, who we later learn used to be a night guard and is one of the missing children's fathers, the father of Cassidy. We're entering the building to do some investigating and find out where our missing child went. And with our motive in mind, we're safe to head into Night 1 and start talking about what this game really has to offer. Night 1 introduces 2 characters, but before I start talking about them, I want to talk about the office itself. In our office, the first thing I want to get out of the way is this picture. I don't know who this is. I checked the wiki and couldn't figure out who this is. That's it. I just don't know who this is. Anyways, on to something actually important. The coolest thing I noticed about this office is that there are actually 2 rooms that we can move between, the typical office room and the boiler room. I'll talk more about the boiler room later when it becomes important. The door to the boiler room can be held shut, as animatronics will actually have to travel through it in order to get to your office. The only other things in our office is our camera system and a giant gift box. We can hide inside of this gift box to be able to protect ourselves from the first major threat of this night, Foxy. Foxy behaves pretty much exactly the same as in Five Nights at Freddy's 1. He starts on Pirate's Cove and makes his way through some phases before attacking. However, something unique about Foxy is he actually has 2 completely different attacks he can perform, each of which requires you to do something completely different to counteract him. The first attack he has is pretty simple. After he leaves Pirate's Cove, he will charge towards your office. When he does, you'll have to quickly jump inside the present until you hear him run away, after which you can jump back out and continue. His other attack is unfortunately a mechanic I've grown to dislike more and more as I play FNAF games. After leaving Pirate's Cove, Foxy has a chance to appear randomly on one of your cameras. When he does, all you have to do is find him and stare at him until he goes back to Pirate's Cove. This is mainly a me thing, but I've personally grown tired of the find them on the cameras mechanic. Yes, I do play Five Nights at Freddy's for a living, so yes, I'm going to see repeated mechanics a lot. Most sane people don't play as much Five Nights at Freddy's as I do, so most people won't find this mechanic to be that big of a deal, but hey, at least it's not a stupid fucking music box mechanic. We'll talk about that later. The only other threat introduced on this night is Bonnie. Bonnie is incredibly simple in how he works, as is typical in most FNAF games that feature him. Bonnie will make his way through the building and to your office. Afterwards, you'll be able to hear him at your door. You'll need to quickly go up to the door and hold it shut until you hear him leave, like Five Nights at Freddy's 4. When you do, you'll know it's safe to reopen the door and continue the night. Very basic. That's just how we like Bonnie, isn't it, guys? Right? You like it when Bonnie's basic, right? You wouldn't want Bonnie to just hot bottom right into your office and start fingering you, would you? Freak. And with that, we can move on to the post-night 1 minigame. Here's where we get to talking a lot about how cool this game really is. This game does narrative storytelling in a different way than any other FNAF game I've ever seen. Instead of an 8-bit minigame or a slideshow lore dump, Tales of the Bunnyman turns into a visual novel during the post-night sections, having you play in the perspective of a different character each night. I think this is actually super cool. While yes, you may think that it looks straight out of a My Hero Academia DeviantArt fan page, it is very clear that an amazing amount of care and effort went into these post-night sections, and that cannot go unnoticed. Before I really start talking about the lore of this game, I need to make it incredibly clear that there was so much poured into this story. There's so many details that I could point out that would make this video quite literally take hours to complete. And while I'd love to be able to talk about all of it, I don't have the confidence in myself to do so, and to be able to portray it in the way that it rightfully deserves. I'll be going over what happens in the story, but I won't be diving into every single minute detail, and I apologize if you were hoping that I would. Anyways, in this minigame, we play in the perspective of Jeremy Jr. Fitzgerald. After hanging out with his friends at Freddy Fazbear's, he notices that his mom has not yet come to pick him up. After waiting an extended period of time, he decides to just watch the performance on stage. Hearing a strange whistling coming from backstage, he enters to investigate, only to abruptly get abducted and murdered by the Bunny Man, going on to possess Bonnie. I honestly think that these post-night minigames are a breath of fresh air in this genre. I've never seen anything like it before, and I'd love to see more FNAF games try to do something new like this to tell their story. But now it's time for us to move on to night 2. Night 2 only introduces one new threat, that being Chica. Chica does exactly what you'd expect her to do, and no, I don't mean eating until she pops like a balloon. What I really mean is moving through the cameras and then going to your office. Oh my fucking god, that is gross. Yuck. Fucking yuck, bro. She does go through one additional camera compared to Bonnie, making you see her less often than him, but other than that, she's exactly the same as Bonnie. I'll also use this night to talk about the only thing I dislike about this game. The mouse. Oh my god, this mouse is atrocious. Oh no, this mouse is really bad. If you're at all familiar with my channel, you'll already know that the way the mouse works is always something I'll have a problem with when fan games try to switch it up. In most FNAF games, when you move your mouse to the side of the screen will scroll in that direction until it hits the end of your office. That makes sense, and this is good. Tales of the Bunnyman instead decided to take a route similar to Sister Location. If you are to move your mouse to one side of the screen in Tales of the Bunnyman, your mouse won't follow the moving office. Instead, the game will keep track of its simulated X and Y positions in the office. And while this may sound super cool, in practice it leads to you having to move your mouse all the way across your desk or increasing your mouse's sensitivity to be able to make up for it. Is this nitpicky? Yes. But I am giving my opinion on a game, so I think it's important to talk about things that I notice, especially when it's the main interaction mechanic in the entire game. Anyways, moving on to the post-Night 2 minigame, where we play in the perspective of Susie Sutherland. The group of friends were supposed to play the newly installed arcade game, Pop Goes versus the Machinist? 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 Mechanist? Machinist? I don't know. Instead, she decides to split up from the group to go look for Bonnie. Walking around the building, we can talk to a kid named Ollie, who mentions something about Bonnie acting weird recently. Given the timeline of the events this game has, I'm fairly certain that this cutscene is taking place 16 days after Jeremy's disappearance. So I think it's safe to say that Jeremy at this point in time is already inside of the Bonnie costume. During this minigame is when Susie can also find a VHS tape relating to Edwin Murray. If you couldn't already tell, this game's story is heavily entwined with the official FNAF games. Later, Susie heads over to Pirate's Cove to get a peek at Foxy, getting startled by William inside of the Spring Bonnie suit. It's at this point I need to mention two things. One, why is this specific camera in the post-nights a 3D render instead of the usual 2D drawing? And two, why is William the only character in the entire game to have voice acting? Mr. Afton, don't scare me like that.
Now, what's a missy like you doing snooping around a pirate's property?
Why is he voice acting? I'm much more curious about my second question. I was a little caught off guard when I first heard him speak, since, again, nobody in the game thus far ever has. But regardless, that's not very important. After a brief, uncomfortable conversation with Afton, we meet up with our friends again at the new arcade machine, and as we play the game, we're seen being stalked by the Bunny Man. If you couldn't already guess, Susie Sutherland goes on to possess Chica. Now it's time to talk about Night 3, which introduces one new threat, Freddy and the Marionette. Now, pause. Let's just stop for a moment and talk about Freddy first, okay? Freddy, like Foxy, has two different attacks. We'll talk about the more simple one first. Freddy will make his way through the cameras and enter your boiler room. The reason he does so is to attempt to cut the power, because doing so will allow for the Marionette to come spread your buns and lick up your crack. To prevent this from happening, we will have to enter the boiler room and hold our flashlight on his face, causing him to bug out and leave the boiler room. However, before he does, we actually get to see him creepily tilt his body. Such a small detail, but I actually really like it. Now we can talk about the other mechanic Freddy has that I originally thought was going to make me want to skin an elephant. As previously mentioned, it's clear that Freddy wants to assist in helping the Marionette grope us. So, Freddy's other attack is him going to the music box to fuck up the Marionette's sleep schedule. Fun fact, I used to work a graveyard shift at a news station, and let me tell you, you don't want to fuck with nobody's sleep schedule, bro. So, in order to save the marionette's sanity, we must remotely shut down the music box before Freddy can finish. Moving on to the Night 3 post-night minigame, we play in the perspective of Fritz Smith II. Let me tell you, this guy is a big fan of Foxy. So much so that he insists on constantly talking like a pirate, something that made me want to eat my own lungs throughout my playthrough because I was writhing in cringe. A.S. the worst one. It be fixin' to be jolly. What the fuck does that mean? Fritz leaves the group to go look for Foxy. Going to Pirate's Cove, he finds a decommissioned Foxy behind the curtains. Additionally, he finds a diary written by Henry. I guess for some reason, this is where Henry goes to vent, right next to the fucked up looking robot. A little weird, Henry, but you do you, boo. Inside of the diary, we read that Henry is struggling to cope with the loss of his daughter and his theory about Jeremy and Susie's disappearances having something to do with each other. Little did he know how right he truly was. Whilst continuing to read the diary, the bunny man appears behind him and drags him into the back room, all while taunting him, saying that he thought he was more interested in Foxy than Henry's diary. Fritz would go on to possess Foxy. Moving on to Night 4, we get to talk about a very odd threat, Balloon Boy. Yes, for some reason Balloon Boy is in this game. Don't question it. I guess the developer of this game just hates fun. Balloon Boy isn't a very difficult threat to deal with, thankfully, instead serving more of an annoyance, which is very fitting for his character. Balloon Boy can only appear in 2 rooms in the entire game, the boiler room and your backstage camera. You'll have to listen out for a vent sound cue. When you hear it, you'll have to travel to the back room and find where Balloon Boy is, because, unlike Freddy, he has multiple different locations that he can stand in. Once you find Balloon Boy, just like Freddy, all you have to do is hold your flashlight on him until he goes away. I'm really not entirely sure why Balloon Boy exists in this game. I have yet to find any story reason for it either. Maybe it's just a popular character to put into the game, or maybe I'm just reading way too much into this. I'm not really sure, but hey, let's move on to the post-Night 4 minigame. In this minigame, we play as Gabriel Collins. Gabriel sneaks into Freddy Fazbear's Pizza because he has a hunch that his missing friends are still inside. Once he enters, he searches the location, eventually discovering the marionette. They quickly become friends and begin exploring the establishment together. Eventually, they stumble across Michael and William Afton. William is trying to convince Michael to work as a performer, playing the character of Bonnie. But before we can hear anything else, William spots us. He chases us through the building, and the marionette hides us in its gift box. However, unfortunately for Gabriel, William finds him anyway and is knocked out. He wakes up inside of the Freddy Fazbear costume, watching William Afton jump around the dining room, mocking him through his last breaths. Gabriel would then go on to possess Freddy. This is easily one of the most fucked up cutscenes throughout the entire game. I'm no edgelord, as some people seem to think I am, but I really enjoy when games show us the depraved things that the villains do. I and many others don't want to just hear about things happening, we want to see them as well. Of course, I don't think we all want to literally see the children getting murdered, but I think showing off the situations in the way that Tales of the Bunnyman does is incredibly interesting. Next, we get to move on to Night 5, the final main night in Tales of the Bunnyman. This night adds Fredbear, an interesting but fitting final character choice. Fredbear acts as an everything character, being able to take on the role of every animatronic besides Balloon Boy and Foxy. However, unlike most everything nights that take place in other FNAF games, Fredbear is active alongside each other animatronic, adding one more layer of stress to the nights. Again, he doesn't have any unique mechanics by himself, but this time I'm honestly okay with that, only because the other characters are still active. It's at this point I want to bring up something I should have brought up a long time ago: the character designs. From what I've seen, the community seems to be pretty split on their opinions of these character designs. A lot of people love them and think that in combination with the grungy environment, it makes them look very creepy. However, on the other hand, I've seen plenty of people who think that the designs look unprofessional and seemingly come out of a game that came out many years ago. I personally have no problems with the character designs. I think they look creepy and uncomfortable. However, I do think that the texturing on the characters does look a bit odd, but nothing that I feel takes away from the immersion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Also, since I'm being a little meta right now, go subscribe to my new channel, Dxtr Gray. I cover non-FNAF horror games over there, and we have a lot of fun. Anyways, moving on to the final post-night minigame where we play in the perspective of Cassandra Baldwin, or better known, Cassidy. Now, noticing that she's the only member of her friend group that hasn't gone missing, she vows to figure out what happened to them and find where they all disappeared to. Entering the back room, she finds a Fredbear plushie which, throughout the game, has been shown to be able to teleport on its own, and yet, for some reason, nobody felt like that was weird at all. This is really the only gripe I have with this story, the plushie teleporting around, and multiple people know about this, yet nobody is at all a little concerned about it. On top of that, it is literally never once elaborated on or explained why this happens. I can't even draw a conclusion because there's quite literally no reason, but let's try to put that behind us for a moment and continue. We do know that the plushie is being used by Afton to lure Cassidy into the back room. Now, pause. I know I just said there's literally no reason given as to why it's teleporting, and you may be questioning why I said that even though I just stated that William was using it to lure Cassidy. However, that still doesn't explain how it was fucking teleporting, and still doesn't explain why nobody gave that a second thought. Anyways, Cassidy is successfully lured into the back room. Scared, Cassidy runs out of the pizzeria and later returns for a Halloween party. I know that's not what that says, I'm sorry. As she explores, she's found by the bunny man who presumably knocks her out after stating, "You forgot me." She awakens to find herself inside of the Fredbear costume. William explains that originally he planned to save the Fredbear costume for Henry, but decided to use it for Cassidy instead. During their conversation, it's revealed that Vincent, the character that we've been playing as in the night sections, according to William, is a terrible night guard, which would technically leave him responsible for not noticing the children's disappearances on the camera, since every action that William had been taking was done under the constant surveillance of those cameras, including what's happening right now in front of us. This would give us a perfect reason as to why he's returning to the restaurant now to find his daughter, because he didn't watch her like he was supposed to. He never saw what happened. Afterwards, we get one last cutscene. Vincent walks up to the Fredbear animatronic and realizes it's his daughter. However, he trips and falls, which leads to him getting killed by his own daughter, and Tales of the Bunny Man abruptly comes to a close. Almost. There's actually one more thing to talk about, that being Night 6, or as this game calls it, the epilogue. In it, after completing the final challenge, which is just a harder version of Night 5, we see the line, "He finally found the suit that will become his tomb, the last lingering piece of his soul. A good song never dies." With that, we get to watch William's spring lock failure and onlook as he bleeds out. We're shown that Vincent, our character, was found dead inside of Freddy Fazbear's, and several news outlets labeled him as the reason the kids were murdered. I can't lie to you guys, I'm really eager to talk about this story, since after reading into it, I actually think it's really good, and it's clear that a bunch of effort was put into it. But like I said previously, I'm just not confident in my abilities to do it for myself. I've tossed around the idea of just reading the highly detailed explanation on the wiki that was written by somebody that was far more talented than I am, but I've decided against doing that since I don't want to come off as lazy and uninspired. And as much as I hate saying this, I'd highly recommend you go to the wiki and read up on it. It's actually such an amazingly well-written story, and I think it might just be one of the best takes on the official FNAF story I've ever seen. Overall, I think Tales of the Bunny Man is an enjoyable experience. The post-night minigames are interesting, and the story is fantastic and told in a way that isn't overtly confusing like most FNAF games like to be. However, I do think that the actual gameplay mechanics are pretty lackluster. Not only does each character not really have synergy with one another, this game is also just too easy. Throughout the nights, it never really feels like the characters are becoming more aggressive, which tends to lead to boring nights where you're just waiting for the much more enjoyable minigame sections. But what do you think? Do you agree with me, or do you think Tales of the Bunnyman is the most well-balanced FNAF game experience? Let me know in the comments below. In my Showman's Awakening video, I asked you guys what your favorite mechanic from a Five Nights at Freddy's game was. My favorite answer was this one by Roan-Q8V. They said the turning off the light mechanic, specifically from Tyke & Sons Lumber Co. I think Tyke & Sons did that mechanic really well too, so it's cool to see someone else mentioning it. Depravity. Something that plagues several corners of the internet. Whether you like to think about it or not, disgusting people lurk everywhere. They're in every community, interacting with countless people, and in the worst cases, interacting with minors. They corrupt even the most wholesome of communities and snake their way into people's trust. But even the slimiest of snakes get the light shined on their dark desires eventually. And while it may hurt people knowing that someone they looked up to or someone who created something they really enjoyed were one of these snakes, it's always important to remember, though, that a bad apple doesn't always spoil the whole orchard. Today, we'll be talking about an incredibly infamous game in the Five Nights at Freddy's community. I'm not the first, nor will I be the last to speak about it, but I and many other sensible people are capable of separating the art from the artist, and are plenty capable of commenting and criticizing a piece of media without attaching its creator to it. And that's what I'm going to be doing today. Towards the end of this video, I will also be talking about the creator of this game to give you a better understanding of what he was like before he seemingly left the internet. If things are about to get uncomfortable or depraved, I will give ample warning before we talk about said subjects. But in general, viewer discretion is advised. Come with me as we dive into the sick and depraved world of Dormitibus. But before we talk about the disgusting story of this game that would make most normal people want to throw up, we first have to talk about the actual gameplay, which I'll tell you is definitely something. I'll let you be the judge of whether or not it's actually good. There's no better place to start than night one, which I will mention, Dormitibus takes a different approach to nights than most FNAF games. Generally speaking, FNAF games have 5 nights, corresponding to 1 work week on the job, with a typical 6th day of overtime and 7th optional night to round out the week. Since in Dormitibus we play as a character who isn't actually working anywhere, Dormitibus is not tied to a typical week, instead having 10 nights rather than the typical 6. So let's dive right into night 1. Let's start by talking about this goofy-ass office. You can travel from one side of the office to the other. One side of the office lets you look at your cameras, and the other side of the office has literally fucking nothing. But I'll go over why the useless side of the office is technically not useless in a moment. Another question you may have is, why the hell do we run under the table to get to the other side of the room when there's plenty of space on both sides of the table to walk around? Now you see, the answer to that question is fuck you. But now let's actually talk about some animatronics. As usual, I will explain each animatronic as they're introduced into the game, and on night 1, we only have one animatronic to deal with, that being Havoc Freddy. Try your best not to focus on these goofy-ass designs. They have their own charm, in a way. Havoc Freddy is one of the most simple characters in all of Dormitibus. Freddy will move throughout the cameras, slowly inching towards your office. He arrives at your left door, and when he does, you can turn to your left to double check that he's there. You'll be able to see him peering in at you. When he's there, you'll need to run to the other side of the room. At that point, he will almost immediately go away. I have no idea why this scares him away. I guess he's brain dead, but I'm not going to complain about an easy mechanic. Fun fact, you can actually make this mechanic even easier by never even checking if Freddy is at your door. Freddy makes a very noticeable sound cue when he arrives at your door, that being the sound of a door creaking directly in your left ear. I wonder if the other animatronics will be any harder. As mentioned, Havoc Freddy is the only enemy in night 1, so beating it should be a cakewalk. What does night 2 have in store? Well, night 2 doesn't have Havoc Freddy present, and this is where I want to bring up something about this game that I actually think is pretty cool. In most FNAF games, as the nights go on, more and more animatronics will be added, and on top of that, they will become more and more aggressive. Dormitibus takes a different approach. Because of how many characters there are, it would not be possible to deal with all of them at once if their AI levels were super high. So instead, the game experiments with animatronic combinations, pairing a few animatronics together rather than throwing all of them at you at the same time, which I think is actually pretty cool. But for animatronics in Night 2, we have Havoc Chica and Am I Real, also known as Cake Bear. Let's start with Havoc Chica, as her mechanic is the easiest to deal with of the two. Havoc Chica is pretty much just a slightly more annoying version of Havoc Freddy, with one deep, cutting, wounding flaw that I'll get to later. Chica will move around the building and make her way to your right door. Once Chica gets to your door, you can turn to check if she's there, but like Freddy, she also makes a very obvious sound cue, that being laughing in your right ear. When Chica is at the door, all you need to do is run to the useless side of the room and stare at Chica. Once she leaves, you will have to very quickly run back to the camera side of the room. If you don't move back fast enough, Havoc Cupcake will have a feast with your yeast. That's disgusting. I'm sorry. Oh my god. Now it's time to talk about Am I Real? Am I Real moves around the cameras at random. Whenever he enters a new camera, he will audibly state which camera he moved to. Once you hear him say a camera, you will have to switch to that camera and check which form he's in. Am I Real has two possible forms, one form being Am I Real, a gross Springtrap looking design, and the other form being Cake Bear, a much more normal Freddy looking design. If you check the camera and see Cake Bear, you're free to continue playing the game as usual, no call for alarm. However, if you check the camera and you see Am I Real, you will have to stay and stare at that camera for what can feel like at times an entire minute, until Am I Real turns back into Cake Bear. Now, this may sound scary, especially when you think about the fact that in order to run to the other side of the room to avoid Havoc Chica and Freddy, you have to turn the cameras off. But the game knew this would be a problem, so when you shut the cameras off to move to the other side of the room, it will still count as you staring at that camera, meaning that Am I Real will still turn back to Cake Bear even if you're on the other side of the room, as long as the last camera you were looking at was Am I Real's. If you don't watch Am I Real, he will appear at your right door, and once he's there, there's nothing you can do to stop him from giving you a rough spanking that a lot of you freaks will really like. If you can manage all of that, then congratulations! You're ready to move on to Night 3. Night 3 uses Havoc Freddy, Am I Real, and two new characters, Soul Cage and Molten Evil. I'll cover Molten Evil first. Molten Evil will only ever appear in your office. When you see him, he will start to cover your screen with blue plasma. Once this plasma is on your screen, you will have to play dead by looking up at the ceiling. Don't ask. I know it doesn't make any sense, but just pretend like it does for me. After looking at the ceiling for long enough, the plasma will go away and you'll be safe to look down again. If you look up before the plasma is on your screen, Molten Evil will wait until you look back down before putting the plasma on your screen. So looking up early really only just stalls him. Soul Cage is somewhat similar in a way. Soul Cage will move around the cameras and slowly piece itself together. Once it's put together fully, it will make its way to your right door. Once he arrives, he too will play a sound cue to let you know he's there. When he does, you'll have to look over at him. Afterwards, he'll enter your office and move up onto your ceiling. In order to get him to leave, all you have to do is stare up at the ceiling at him until he goes away. If you haven't noticed yet, every single character can be dealt with by staring at them. And if you're hoping that the other characters will be different, most of them will cause you to be sorely disappointed. Hate to break it to you. Wait, who am I kidding? I love breaking bad news. Night 4 only introduces one new character, but the returning characters are Havoc Freddy, Havoc Chica, and Am I Real. The new character is Havoc Puppet. Havoc Puppet moves around the cameras and makes its way to your back window, which is located right behind your computer. Once Havoc Puppet appears in your window, it will make a very noticeable sound cue. At that point, all you have to do is turn around to your window and stare at it until it goes away. Are you starting to notice a possible game mechanic flaw with Dormitibus? Literally every character is answered by looking at them, and that's literally it. Hopefully, we get a new character soon that's at least a little different. Holy fucking shit, this new character is bullshit. Okay, let's take a step back and relax for a second. Every character up until this point has been Baby Caca Easy Mode. Night 5 consists of Soul Cage, Havoc Puppet, Am I Real, and the two brand new Wombo combo, Havoc Foxy and Golden Call. Havoc Foxy and Golden Call are pretty much one and the same, as one of them really can't work without the other. Havoc Foxy is on camera 5, something I thought was weird because the phone guy on this night says that he's on camera 4, which is just flat out wrong, but let's move past that. Havoc Foxy has 3 phases on his camera. which the final has Foxy standing out of his curtains. You can slow down Foxy by watching his camera, and this will become very important because you want to avoid his third phase as much as you can. However, this can prove difficult because of one character I'm sure you've already thought about, Am I Real? With Am I Real hogging most of your camera time, Foxy is free to buttfuck you as much as he wants. Once Foxy reaches phase 3, Golden Call comes into play. After reaching phase 3, Golden Call will send a voicemail to your computer with a Trojan virus attached. In order to remove the Trojan, you'll have to type in a password. How do you get the password? Well, this is when phase 3 Foxy becomes important. While in phase 3, Foxy will be holding a sign with the randomly generated phrase on it. You'll have to read the phrase on the sign and find the longest word. The longest word will be the password you need to get rid of the Trojan. Once you remove the Trojan, you will have to very quickly run to the other side of the office and watch the right side door as Foxy will soon be approaching. Once Foxy peers in, all you have to do is stare at him until he goes away. Afterwards, you'll be free to go back to your cameras and resume business as usual. Congrats! You've successfully survived a Golden Call attack. Are you stressed? Well, you should be because you're going to be seeing a lot more of that. Again, the real problem with Havoc Foxy and Golden Call isn't really their mechanics. That's fine. The problem really comes down to Am I Real? Again, Am I Real constantly requires your attention as he moves around the cameras often. Just by himself, he'll take away from your time stalling Foxy, and once you get a Trojan, you'll have to stop looking at Am I Real to find the password. But not watching Am I Real will get you killed really easily. Generally speaking, from my experience, you want to drop everything for Golden Call, get the password in as fast as you can, quickly switch back to Am I Real's camera before running to the other side of the room to watch Foxy. I feel like this will give you the most success. Night 6 includes Havoc Foxy, Havoc Chica, Molten Evil, and Am I Real. While that alone may sound like a very unfun time, just wait until I introduce the next most frustrating character on the planet, the BOA, or as I like to call it, Boa, aka Boa Bitch Boy. Boa starts in a box on the cameras and slowly emerges from it, afterwards making its way to your right door. Once there, it will give you a sound cue. When you hear it, you will need to quickly move to the other side of the room. Something pretty interesting about Boa is that he actually speaks to you. If you're running to the other side of the room, Boa says this. Once you get to the other side of the office, just like most characters, all you have to do is look at it. You might be wondering why this character is so frustrating if he acts exactly the same as Havoc Chica. Well, the answer to that question is simple. Boa Bitch Boy sits at your door for approximately 17 years, and that number came from countless hours of crunching the numbers, analyzing algorithms. I promise it's very accurate. That's seriously why Boa is such a difficult character to deal with. Mixed with all the other characters that require so much of your attention, having a character that requires double or maybe even triple the amount of time can feel like a purgatory. But if you can handle that, you'll be on to Night 7. Night 7 contains Soul Cage, Molten Evil, and the deadly Wombo combo of Havoc Foxy, Golden Call, and Am I Real. No new characters on this night, but I'm sure it's just so that players have some time to find some strategies that can fend off the Butthole Trilogy gang. Night 8 is where this game cranks the dial up to 1,000. While it introduces no new characters, the combo of characters present is enough to make any grown man cry. I know I did. Night 8 consists of Havoc Freddy, Havoc Chica, Havoc Foxy, Golden Call, Am I Real, and the icing on the cake, the Boa. This lineup of characters is actually so disgusting, I find it difficult to use vocabulary fitting enough to describe my disgust. I could dish out 100 vulgarities, and it still wouldn't be enough to portray the feeling of dread you get while trying to beat this night. The Wombo combo mixed with the Boa is already bad enough, but throw Freddy and Chica into the mix and you're itching for somebody to commit quintuple homicide on everybody in their domicile. This is probably the most infamous night in this entire game. There's a one-on-one boss fight on a later night, but that doesn't even compare to this bullshit. You want to know the main issue? The main issue is that this night is entirely dependent on luck. That's the worst part. Most people who play FNAF will tell you that luck is the most unenjoyable part of any FNAF game because it doesn't matter how much you practice. Your chances of winning is entirely dependent on whether or not the game decides to fuck you in the asshole. And for some unfortunate people who played this game soon after it released, had to deal with an absolutely foul bug. Remember when I said that Chica had a terrible flaw? This is the time where I get to explain that flaw to you, the viewer. Chica used to have an incredibly glaring bug, that being, you would hear Chica laugh, signaling for you to move to the other side of the office to stare at her. So you do, but as you turn to look at her, she won't be there. Moments later, Nightmare Cupcake would kill you, almost like you ignored Chica altogether, but you know you didn't, and she just didn't appear. This would happen incredibly frequently. Fun fact, it was actually this exact bug that made Dawko give up on this night and skip it. I can only imagine how incredibly frustrating it must have been for players to pour so much time into this night, get to 6 AM, only to then die because Chica decided she didn't want to work. Absolutely foul. I never had to deal with this bug, so it appears to not be a problem anymore, but let me know in the comments if you've experienced the problems with this Havoc Chica bug. If you can somehow manage to keep your sanity intact through night 8, then you can finally move on to night 9. And let me tell you, it will feel incredibly underwhelming because night 8 is so much harder. Night 9 consists of Soul Cage, Havoc Puppet, Havoc Foxy, Golden Call, Molten Evil, and Am I Real? Can you figure out why this night is easier than the previous? Yeah, you're exactly right. It's because the boa isn't there to slam your dick in a car door. I don't have much to say about this night, honestly. The voice acting of the phone call is pretty questionable, but I'll talk more about the phone calls in a while. Night 10, however, I do have something to talk about. Remember how I said one of the nights in this game is a one-on-one boss fight? Yeah, this is that night. You go up against a character you haven't seen before named Garvey. Now, since Garvey is the only animatronic on this night, you may think it's going to be easy. And while I'd say it's still easier than night 8, it's definitely not easy by any means, so get that thought out of your head right now, bucko. So I'm going to warn you ahead of time that Garvey's mechanics are not technically difficult, but you'll understand why he's such a pain in the ass as this explanation goes on. Let's get one huge problem out of the way. You're only allowed to be looking at the cameras for a specific amount of time throughout the night. The more you look at the cameras, the darker your vision gets. It's definitely slow, but once it starts to get dark, you'll totally be able to tell. Garvey can attack from 3 different locations. Think of these locations as the left, the middle, and the right. Left and right are the most straightforward. You will have to listen for Garvey's laughter. This will give you a pretty clear indication of which side he's about to attack you from. At this point, you must open up the cameras. This is the part where I should mention that there's been a vent toggle button on the cameras this whole time. I never brought it up because it hasn't ever been important up until this point. After you pull up the camera and toggle the vents, you must click on the vent of the side Garvey is coming from. This will temporarily slow him down. At this time, you must very quickly run to the other side of the office and stare at the door he'll be coming from. Beating him to the door is key. You have to be staring at the door before Garvey peeks in, which can be challenging because you need to be fast. Like, really fucking fast. It will not feel remotely fair, but as you start to learn his speed, it will get slightly easier. Which, like, no fucking shit, that's how practice works. Insane that I have to explain to you how practicing works, and yet, here we are. Now, there will come a few times where you will hear his laughter in both of your ears. At this time, all you have to do is look straight up at the ceiling. You'll be able to see him staring back at you. Keep staring until he disappears, and you'll be good to continue. Honestly, the best part of this night is that you don't have to deal with Golden Call. God fucking damn, I hate that stupid ass animatronic bitch. But if you can manage to hunker down and deal with all of the garbage for long enough, you'll be able to beat night 10. But what happens then? Well, a cutscene plays. At our desk, we will be able to see a heart on the table for some reason. As we're confused, wondering why it's there, Garvey shatters the window behind us and begins chasing us through the building. We get trapped near a door and enter one final spacebar mashing minigame. The screen cuts to black and we're shown a gravestone of a John Wright, stating brat, scum, waste of air. So, that might seem confusing to you, so I suppose it's time I explain a bit about the lore, huh? Bear with me, as this is not one of my strong suits. So that John Wright on the tombstone is us. We've been playing as John Wright, as is mentioned in the Night 1 phone call. A man by the name of Peter is the phone guy, and he's the one calling us throughout the nights. He claims he used to be a security guard at Freddy Fazbear's. On night 1, Peter explains that we're dead and in a sort of purgatory, with several monsters roaming the buildings. And these monsters are supposedly our childhood friends. The reason why we're in a Freddy Fazbear's-like location is because our mind shapes the purgatory based off of the things we've seen. which could suggest we either worked at a Fazbear's location before or at least have a strong tie to one. Peter says we can escape this purgatory, but he needs our help. He says to grab an audio tape that should be on the desk next to the fan. This is also where we learn that there is a tape that we need to collect on each night. All tapes, aside from the first, will appear randomly on one of the cameras, and I'll get into these tapes later. On night 2, Peter explains his theories about why we're being hunted by the animatronics. He believes that someone or something tried to manifest these ghosts into physical bodies. That attempt clearly failed, which is why all of the characters look so fucked. Peter believes that because we are ghosts, we have a plasma of sorts that the animatronics need to survive, and that's why they're trying to eat us up like a gourmet steak. We don't get the next meaningful piece of information from Peter until night 5, where he tells us that Golden Call is his own physical remains. That means we've identified one of the animatronics trying to attack us, and we'll soon be able to find out who everyone else is as well, but we can cover that later. Peter tells us that the tapes we've been collecting are memories from our traumatic childhood. Peter mentions how an ominous he is also on these tapes, and I'm willing to bet that this he is Garvey. Peter thinks that collecting all of these tapes will allow our friends to move on and become regular ghosts, not being trapped in this purgatory with us anymore. On night 6, Peter explains to us that he has tapes too in his version of the purgatory, and that both his memories and ours are in one way or another tied to Freddy's locations. He says he missed a few of his tapes because you only get one attempt. The first 10 days in the purgatory decide your fate. Missing one tape is the difference between a chance at escape and spending eternity fending off your suffering dead friends stuck inside of robotic bodies. Peter begs us to collect the tapes and free everyone because he can't anymore. On night 7, Peter says the animatronic sleep cycles are all out of whack. He's been doing this for years while stuck here and was able to find a pattern with their sleep cycles. But out of nowhere, once we came here, those cycles started to change for some reason. Peter mentions he found a key and tried to use it on the exit door, but it didn't work. He says he'll update us as soon as he can. On night 8, we get some pretty crucial information. Peter has found another key, and he believes something may happen soon. He says we probably don't have any keys in our purgatory because he thinks the keys are linked to a specific trauma he suffered. He also thinks he knows why the animatronic sleep cycles are messed up. Apparently, we brought something into this world, and it's big, with loud footsteps causing the characters to wake up when they're not supposed to. Peter says that if this thing we brought in is what he thinks it is, that we're all sorts of fucked. And of course, knowing what we already know, we can take a pretty good guess at who that might be. Night 9 is where we get to hear Peter's final moments. The monster we let enter this world is exactly who Peter thought it was. Garvey. Garvey has been tearing all of the monsters in Peter's purgatory into pieces. Peter knows that we apparently know who Garvey is. He tells us he's hiding behind the curtains where Foxy is, and that Garvey is coming for him. He tells us to get the keys, and the call ends. The 2 keys he's mentioned can be found. The first on night 10 in the same location where you find the tape on camera 5. The second key requires me to tell you about a night I have yet to mention, night 11, aka Nightmare. No matter how good you are at FNAF games, nothing will prepare you for just how surprisingly difficult this night really is. They cranked the AI for these characters on this night up to 10,000. Holy shit, it's insane. From 10 a.m. to 5 a.m., you go up against Havoc Freddy, Havoc Chica, Havoc Foxy, Havoc Puppet, Golden Call, The Boa, Soul Cage, and Molten Evil all at the same time. This has to be one of the most stressful challenges I've ever attempted. It is ridiculous. The sheer speed you have to even get close to beating this night is ridiculous. You quite literally have no time to rest for even a second. There is constantly something happening, and it's enough to give any grown adult a seizure and kill them instantly. But that's not even the worst part, no. The worst part comes at 5 a.m., when Garvey comes and kills everyone, and you're yet again thrown into a final, even more difficult Garvey boss fight for the last 2 hours of the night. If you thought he was quick before, boy, you better be Usain Bolt, because you need to be double in your speed. It is insane how fast you really have to be if you want to be able to complete this night. But if you can manage to beat this night while grabbing the second key that's on camera 8, congrats! You're almost ready to achieve the good ending. There are a few prerequisites required to get the good ending. The first is getting the 2 keys. Check. The second is collecting all of the tapes. Check. The third is beating Night 11. Check. The fourth is listening to the 10th tape. Come to think of it, we actually haven't dove into the tapes yet, so we'll do that now. But here's that warning I mentioned at the beginning of the video. The topics that take place in these tapes are highly disturbing and are one of the main reasons why this game is so controversial. Viewer discretion is heavily advised. The 10 tapes you collect throughout Dormitibus tell the story of Garvey Wright, John Wright's, our character's, brother. The tapes go over Garvey's plan to murder several children and stuff them into the suits in his father's establishment. There's another minigame you can play in Dormitibus called Cardboard Theater, where you play as Garvey and live out a few of the scenarios mentioned in these tapes. Not only did Garvey murder several children, he also murdered his brother Peter. Yes, the same Peter who was calling us throughout the game. In the Cardboard Theater, we get to watch the spring lock failure happen to Garvey before he has the chance to kill John and leave no witnesses. Garvey's father soon sells the Cake Bear establishments because of the controversy, and it gets bought and turned into what we now know as Freddy Fazbear's. John gets a job at the Fazbear Fright location from Five Nights at Freddy's 3 and goes head-to-head with his brother, who in this game's story basically took William Afton's place as Springtrap. And as you know if you've played FNAF 3, John burns the building down and kills himself as well. After his death is where Dormitibus takes place. By collecting the tapes, collecting the keys, and beating Cardboard Theater, John is able to send Garvey to hell while setting the rest of the spirits of his dead friends and brother free. Dxtr, that sounds pretty normal for a FNAF-style game, I hear you saying. Why did you tell me that viewer discretion was advised? Well, that's because of the contents of Tape 3, and a specific news clipping that you see near the end of the game. In Cardboard Theater, you will need to recollect the 2 keys you collected before while playing. At the end of this minigame, Cake Bears will be unlocked, acting as the final 12th night of Dormitibus. The only 2 characters present in this night are Cake Bear and Havoc Puppet. I won't spend too much time explaining this night since you only ever have to beat it once. Cake Bear will move around the map and make it to your desk. You can stall him by lighting the candle on his cake, but I'm not sure if I'd actually do that because it drains power. Once he gets super close to your desk, quickly pull up the camera and he should go away. Havoc Puppet can appear randomly on any camera and will block your view. Since watching Cake Bear is essential, you'll want to get rid of the puppet. Simply staring at the puppet will cause it to go away, but sitting in the cameras will cause the battery to drain incredibly quickly, so it's best to wait until the battery is fully charged before dealing with him. If the battery goes dead, Havoc Puppet will disable it, which will lead to an inevitable death to Cake Bear. After beating Night 12, you'll be greeted to the FNAF 4 box. You must use the 2 keys you've collected to open it, and several news clippings will be given to you, each detailing the gruesome murders of some of the children at the hands of Garvey. But I'll cover them in just a moment. Back to the tapes. I referenced Tape 3 being the most alarming of all of them. Rather than explain it to you, I'll just play it.
My god! This is most certainly beginning to be fun. There's this hot 15-year-old that was part of the kids' friends group. You know, it was fun. She screamed, but nobody heard her. It was so much fun. She's in one of the suits now. Just a little more time until Fredbear's is going down as well. But hey, I'll find my ways to catch her at the others.
You may have a good idea as to what Garvey is referencing doing in this tape, but if you need any clarification, one of the news clippings will confirm your suspicions. It reads, "The Fredbear's establishment in town was recently closed because of an accident with the animatronical characters. The CEO is now selling the franchise just like the previous owner did. The dirt that has been shed onto the establishment increased even more, as the police found the remains of a 15-year-old female in the back of the establishment, stuffed into a suit. She was supposedly raped to death by a yet unknown killer. Connections to the incident at the previous establishment are already being drawn." This clipping right here, mixed with the excitement in the voice of Garvey in Tape 3, is the sole reason why this game is so hated and is so disgusting. Almost everybody agrees that throwing rape into this story was completely unnecessary. Some may argue that depraved people will do depraved things like this, and it's odd to not acknowledge that terrible things like this really happen. And to a point, I understand your thought process. But to feel the need to add it to a game that will most definitely be played by children with no prior warning is insane. And it gets even worse when you dive into the person who made the decision to put this into the story, Blackout. Blackout has since left the internet, but a while after Dormitibus released, one of the members of the Radiance team responsible for games such as Treasure Island and Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese Rebooted posted an unlisted YouTube video going over Blackout's messages of harassment towards them. Soon after that video followed a Google document surfacing regarding Blackout's behavior, regarding joking about raping people, being hateful towards trans people, and a laundry list of other terrible things. But the most egregious thing that Blackout has done was the Discord messages that were released revealing him to have been grooming a 12-year-old girl, making jokes about Germany's lax age of consent laws, and at one point even sending nudes to this child, this 12-year-old girl. After all of this unfolded, Blackout went on a hate brigade full of harassment and eventually left the internet, thanking his supporters that he for some reason thought he had. Now going to his Game Jolt page reads one message. Jesus Christ, just leave me be. I don't want to live in your heads rent-free. I've moved on, and you should as well. Bye. And with that, that's where the story of Dormitibus ends. A game that could have been something amazing, with a story that was really promising, soiled and ruined by a disgusting, perverted pedophile. Again, I encourage everyone to try their best to separate the art from the artist, but if you can't do that, then I'd recommend checking out the remake of Dormitibus that was made by some very talented creators if you're still interested in seeing what this game has to offer, minus all of the disgusting and unnecessary perversions. But let me know what you think. Taking out the disturbing lore and separating Blackout from it, what do you think about the gameplay of Dormitibus? Do you really like it, or do you feel like it's pretty lazy? I'm interested to hear what you all have to say. The FNAF Fanverse Initiative, an idea Scott Cawthon had that was so good. The ability to bring fan game devs of your games into a closer community and allow them to sell merchandise based off of your branding is an amazingly generous and incredible opportunity. Having amazing games come out of it, such as Joy of Creation, Five Nights at Candy's, and Pop Goes, each of these creators are very passionate in what they do, and it shows. Another game to come out of the fanverse is One Night at Flumpty's 3, the third game in an incredibly designed series. But as something that has become all too familiar with FNAF fan games, as previously seen in games like Graveyard Shift at Freddy's and Dormitibus, the creators' morals and ethics of said games can be called into question. And sadly, the creator of this game, Jonachrome, had his turn on the chopping block that is the internet. Today, I'll be diving into Jonachrome's fantastic FNAF fan game series, all the goods, all the bads, and the disturbing accusations that had the light shined on them for all the public to see. Come with me as we explore the masterpiece of a FNAF game created by a deviant. One Night at Flumpty's 1 is what you'd expect from an old FNAF fan game. It's pretty much just a recreation of FNAF 1, but this game did it differently. Something I think a lot of people could agree with me on is that One Night at Flumpty's was ahead of its time. No other FNAF fan game was as well put together as Flumpty's was. You could argue Five Nights at Candy's was, but I'm not talking about candies right now, am I? As the title suggests, this game only features one night, but don't let that make you think it'll be a cakewalk. This one night is up there in difficulty with nights 5 and 6s from the normal FNAF games, and the difficulty increases by the hour instead of the day. Before I dive into gameplay, however, I want to talk about how amazing this game really looks. There's a lot to be said about Jonachrome, and I'll be diving more into his character at the end of the video. But Jonachrome is an artist, and a damn good one at that. Every single location in this game has so much character put into it, especially the office. Sure, there's a lot of dead things, but ignore what it is for a second and just admire how well done the 2D art in this game really is. Not many FNAF games go for a 2D approach, and I really wish more did because I think it looks amazing. Look at Playtime with Percy for another example. That game is 2D and it looks incredible. Then look at another completely flawless and probably the best FNAF game ever designed with zero competition, FNAF Shitpost. Another game with 2D art that is fantastic, and I definitely have no bias over that game at all. This game did something no other was doing at the time, and it has aged like a fine wine. But now, let's jump butthole first into the gameplay. As mentioned already, this game only has one night, but dear God, it's a long one. Each hour of this night is a minute and a half, making the full night 9 minutes long, which is a crazy amount of time for a FNAF game where you need to have good nerve control. Just like FNAF 1, you have a power system. However, it's only affected by your doors, so feel free to camp the cameras as much as you'd like without the worry of draining your power, which I promise you'll be doing often, as this game is going to rail you in the asshole with encounters, and you'll have to stay on top of each character's location. Speaking of the characters, who are they? Nice segue, Dxtr. Thanks, Dxtr. The first guy we'll talk about is obviously Flumpty, the main attraction. Flumpty acts both as the Freddy of this game and the phone guy. At the beginning of the night, he tells you that his name is Flumpty and that he is immune to the plot and can transcend space and time. He goes on to tell you that he kidnapped you and brought you here to be friends and that he's coming after you. And coming after you, he is. Holy shit. This guy moves at the speed of sound. Flumpty moves randomly across cameras with no pattern, and he can teleport wherever and whenever he likes. Which means, if you're unlucky like me, he can get to your office in about 15 fucking seconds after the night starts. That's awesome. I'm in for a shitty time, aren't I? I'm covering 3 games in this video? Can I get that confirmed? Can I? Hey, can you confirm that? Uh-huh. Yeah? Yeah, alright, fuck me. 3 games in the first 15 seconds already has me stressing. I love this. If you're unable to see Flumpty on any of the cameras, that means one of 2 things. Either 1, he's on the broken camera, which I'll talk about later, or 2, he's at your left door. If he's at your left door, just close it and bada bing bada boom, he can't get in. But something you'll immediately notice is that, unlike FNAF 1, there's no windows, so you won't be able to tell when he's left by just sitting in your office. So you'll have to constantly be checking the cameras to see where he is. And when he moves as fast as he does, it can get overwhelming quickly. Let's talk about our next freak, birthday boy Blam, or just Blam as I'll be calling him. Blam works very similarly to Flumpty, except he attacks the right door and he can't teleport like a dick. He follows a set path to your right door. Just close it, watch the cameras to see when he leaves. I just queefed. That's all you have to do about him. Oh, and in case you're curious, he's also Usain fucking Bolt and moves around the building at Mach 30, so that's just awesome. The Beaver is up next on the chopping block, and yes, his name is just the Beaver. I guess Jonachrome gave up on names here, but that's okay. What does he do? The Beaver acts as this game's Foxy, which it honestly didn't even need because of how often you're checking the cameras, but who really cares? The Beaver is sitting on the toilet taking a big fat patty-whacker double-decker dump and reading a newspaper with several tasteful stories in it. Next to the toilet, you'll see a roll of toilet paper. Throughout the night, the more you fail to watch the Beaver, the smaller the roll of toilet paper will get. When he runs out of toilet paper, the Beaver will sprint at your right door. Also, quick side note, the Beaver has knife feet. I don't know why, it's just something interesting to note. Who's up next, huh? Who do I have in my sights? Boom! Grunkfuck, Grunkfuss the Clown. Arguably one of the most popular characters to come out of this series. Grunkfuss is the first character I've mentioned who doesn't start at the beginning of the night. Instead, he starts at 4 a.m. I love this clown's mechanic. It's incredibly cool. I should mention that this game deliberately doesn't tell you how to play, and it doesn't describe how any of the characters work, leaving you to figure it out yourself. I love this idea, and it can lead to you feeling pretty smart when you find a small detail that can help you figure out how a character works, and Grunkfuss is a perfect example. Grunkfuss doesn't show up on your cameras. Instead, he is only ever visible inside of your office. As the night goes on, he will become more and more visible via a hole in the wall of your office. Well, that doesn't sound fair, I hear you say, and I usually agree, until you put your thinking cap on and realize there's a hint in this game that perfectly explains how Grunkfuss works. On camera 5, there's a hole in the ground with 30 eyes inside. That number is very important. Every time you lift your camera up, you'll notice that one of the 30 eyes have disappeared, and every time you pull your camera down, Grunkfuss becomes more visible. If his eyes reach 0, when you pull the camera down, Grunkfuss will grunk-fuck your shit up. I think this is such a cool little hint this game gives you to explain how he works. You could easily play through the whole game and never piece this together. This is something I really love when games do, and I'd really like to see more of it. But we've still got more to talk about, buddy. Let's move on to the Red Man. Red Man becomes active on hour 3 and starts on camera 3. You'll notice throughout the game up until this point that camera 3 has never been visible. That's because Red Man isn't technically visible on the cameras. Whichever camera he's on will be blacked out, which lets you know where he is. Red Man slowly moves from camera 3 to your left door where you'll be able to see him and close it. Just like the other door characters, you'll have to watch the camera for when he leaves. This brings me back to a point I made when talking about Flumpty. If Flumpty or Blam are on the same camera as Red Man, they too won't be visible, meaning there's a possibility you won't be able to find them, and a possibility that you'll shit your pants as I did when I couldn't find Flumpty because he was camping out with Red Man. So that was fun. The final character I have to briefly mention is Golden Flumpty, and I say briefly because there's not much to talk about. Sometimes you'll see him in your office, and when you do, you have to quickly pull up the cameras. If you don't, a dead sandwich is what you'll be turned into. In terms of characters, that's all One Night at Flumpty's has to offer. This game can be brutally hard. Obviously, like any FNAF game with enough practice, you'll be able to beat this game like clockwork. But hot damn, your first run through might very well be pretty difficult, especially considering you're not taught how to do a goddamn thing. But that's the first game. I'd personally say that it's fantastic. But what if I told you the second game is even better? Let's waste no time and jump into it. One Night at Flumpty's 2 is visually just as great as the first. Each setting looks fantastic. The game is significantly harder than the first, mainly because there's much more to focus on. To start, this game's phone call actually explains the rules, like a little bit. You're gonna have to do a lot of trial and error, but hey, it's still more than the first game gave us. The phone call this time around is a short song, which, that's just lovely, isn't it? The song explains if our lights are off, we're safe, and if they're not, we're about to get our cheeks spread apart so hard they rip off. So, why is the light so important? Well, let's do what we do best and go over each threat one by one. Let's start with Flumpty. As he was in the last game, he's pretty basic in terms of mechanics. Like in the first game, he teleports around wherever and whenever he pleases, so don't think for a goddamn second you're safe, because you're not. He's hungry for ass, and you got a whole lot of it. He a hungry bitch. If at any point you can't find him on the cameras, he will be right outside of your door in the hallway, and in a few seconds, will pop his head in and give you a blumpkin. Characters looking into your office actually brings up one of this game's central mechanics, which I think is really cool. On the bottom of your screen, you'll see an exposure meter. If at any point that meter fills all the way up, it's time for Flumpty and his friends to eat toast off your ass without the toast. When Flumpty peeks his head in, he will have his hands over his eyes to play a quick game of peekaboo with you. Be lucky that he's forgiving like this, because no other character from this point forward will be. While he has his eyes covered, your exposure meter will not increase. This gives you about half a second to turn the lights to your room off. After a few seconds, he will leave and you can turn your lights back on. But before we continue, let's go over what else happens when you turn your lights off. Let me quickly go over the camera and something I noticed about these games that I really like. Notice how in the first game, the camera didn't waste any power. Well, in this game it does, but it does it in a much more engaging way than it does in other FNAF games. Rather than just lowering an arbitrary number, you'll notice on the bottom of your screen you also have a laptop power meter, your laptop being your cameras. While your laptop is up, that meter will decrease, and when you put the laptop back down, the meter will slowly charge and increase again. I love this mechanic. It's still consequential to sit on your cameras, but it still keeps you in control. These games have such good balancing. I struggle to find other FNAF games to match in this department. If your laptop meter is to go completely empty, it will forcibly close and you'll have to wait for it to charge all the way back up before opening it. And when you do, you'll have to wait for the laptop to reboot. This may not seem like a very big deal, but when watching the cameras is as important as it is in this game, having to wait those 10 seconds can feel like an eternity. But back to turning the lights off. When the lights are turned off, you cannot access your cameras, and your laptop will not charge. This is one of those multiple ways this game keeps you from sitting alone in the dark. Something I think all of you chronic gooners should take note of. Blam Birthday Bitch Boy is next. He, like in the last game, works almost the same as Flumpty, moves around a set path, goes to your office, takes a sneak peek at your bits. However, this motherfucker don't play no games. No peekaboo for this guy. Once he's looking, your exposure meter starts to climb. This leads to you needing to watch the cameras and track his location, because even multiple small slivers over how godforsakingly long this night is will start to add up and lead to your asshole looking like a cave. Blam increases your meter faster than Flumpty does. Even though Flumpty is literally a chaos god of death, he increases your meter slower than any other character in this game. Something I think says a lot about his character. I'd say he's just a little harmless guy, but he also has canonically killed 1 billion birds with 1 stone. No, I'm not joking. Grunk Fuckass the Clown is also pretty similar to how he was in the first game. Psych! I fucking lied, bitch! Go look in the mirror at how fucking stupid your face is. You actually thought for a second I wasn't gonna lie straight to your stupid, dumb, ugly face, but I did. Anyways, Funko Pop the Clown can be seen crouched on camera too. Around 2 a.m. he will become active, with a hole appearing on your wall and a patience number appearing on camera too, and quickly decreasing. Once Grunkle Stan the Clown's patience wears thin, he'll pop his head through the hole in your wall and dramatically begin increasing your exposure meter. I'm talking Tyson Gay levels of quickness, and I say Tyson Gay instead of Usain Bolt because there's one character who increases it even faster. Eyesore is technically another character returning from the first. Remember the eyes that appeared in the hole on the floor that showed how many times you could flick up the camera before Fuckhead the Clown would ream you from behind? Yeah, that's him. That's Eyesore. Eyesore will start on camera 1, but won't be active until 4 a.m. Keep in mind, each hour in this game is long as fuck. He'll make his way to your office and peer in. When I tell you, the speed at which this bastard eviscerates your exposure meter is faster than the speed at which I bolt to the toilet after Indian food. I'm not lying. I suppose it makes sense given how many eyes he has, but like, damn, don't let this guy eye bang you for too long, no matter how sexually attracted you are to it. The last returning character we have to bring up is Redman. But Dxtr, what about the beaver? He fucking died. He fell into the toilet and fucking died. Are you happy? I didn't want to have to tell you, but you pulled my leg. Dick? Anyways, Redman. At random points during the night, warning pop-ups will appear on your laptop. If you're not in your laptop, it will be signified next to your camera button with a warning sign like the music box from FNAF 2. When you see this warning message, it will be accompanied with a loading bar. If the loading bar fully increases, you'll be as dead as disco. All you have to do is click cancel. If you lose to Redman in this game, I have no sympathy for you. You have to try and lose to this guy. What about new characters? Well, there's only one, but he's pretty sick. The Owl. The Owl will appear on your cameras taking a fat-ass nap. Throughout the night, he will open his eyes and eventually leave the urinal he's perched on. When he does, you'll have to quickly check your vent cameras to see which vent he's about to assault you through. Once you know, you'll have to close the vent in your office in accordance with which side the owl is attacking you from. If you don't, you guessed it, ask buffet and you're the main course. The vents don't waste any power, but only one of them can be closed at a time. So there's that. Additionally, you can close the vents even if your lights are off, which is incredibly generous and really just adds to the flow and pattern this game has. The final character I want to talk about is Golden Flumpty. So I guess I technically lied when I said Redman was the last recurring character, but fuck you. He works the same way as he did in the first game. Sometimes you'll see him in your office, either quickly turn the lights off or pull up your camera and he'll leave. Whoopity-doo, lore or something, I don't really know. That's all One Night at Flumpty's 2 has going for it. Well, it has a difficulty mode called Hard Boiled, which drastically increases the difficulty of the night, but it doesn't change any fundamental game mechanics, so I don't think it's worth diving into. One Night at Flumpty's 2 is such an enormous step up from the first, and that's saying a lot considering how amazing the first game really was. With the third game right around the corner, I can't wait to see what Jonachrome came up with. Oh, did I say right around the corner? Sorry, I meant 6 fucking years later. One Night at Flumpty's 3 released in 2021. Jonachrome made it clear he was never interested in making another Flumpty's game after 2, but the only reason he did is because Scott reached out to him for the Fanverse initiative. So what does 3 have to offer, and does it live up to the last 2? Flumpty's 3 is just like the last in one way. The art is phenomenal. Every single scene is fantastic and full of references. It makes the game very fun to look at. The office in this game is very frozen. You'll notice a thermometer in the corner of your screen. It's very important that you keep yourself warm and not let that meter reach empty, or you'll freeze to death like a bitch. You can go over to the furnace to have it slowly increase, and you'll need to be doing this throughout the night. How about the threats though? Returning from the last 2 games, we have Blam, who works very similarly to how he does in previous games. He'll move around the building in a set path and make it to your door, which in this game is really just a hallway. The cameras don't have power, so you should be camping them as often as you can. When Blam gets to your door is when we have to talk about a new mechanic, your camera. On the bottom of your screen, you'll notice a camera button with 20 uses. That's right, you can only use this camera 20 times throughout the night before it won't work anymore. So you better make sure you're keeping track of where every character is, because you don't want to waste any of these flashes. When Blam gets to your door, all you have to do is flash the hall and he'll run away. But be aware, there's no visual or auditory cue to signify that he's there, which is why watching the cameras is so important. Next, we've got another returning character, which by the way, there are no new characters, so I'll stop mentioning this. Anyways, the next character is Grunk Punk-Ass Slut Bitch the Clown. He does literally the exact same thing as Blam, but with one key difference. You do not want to flash him when he's in the hallway. The flash makes him scared and he'll pee his pants. That makes him embarrassed and he'll have to kill all the witnesses, and sadly for you, you're the only witness, so guess it's time to die. But being serious, while Grunkfuss is technically easier to deal with than Blam, he really makes you make sure you know where everyone is, because one false flash and it's game over. Next up on the chopping block, as I've said for the second time this video, is the Red Man. He becomes active at 1 AM and will make his way towards your furnace. On his furnace room camera, you'll see a warning telling you to stay away from your furnace. If you go to warm up by the furnace while this message is present, he'll eat your ass from the back, which I know some of you dirty freaks want, but for the rest of us normal people is something we'd prefer to prevent. I actually think this is a really nice mechanic. Something to keep you away from the only safe thing you have is super interesting. Knock knock, who's there? I don't really know, I don't usually answer my door, but we're talking about the eyesore next. He becomes active at 4 AM and actually can't be seen on the cameras. So how are you supposed to defend yourself? Well, lucky for you, you can actually see him in your hallway. Unlike the other characters, however, you'll actually have to flash eyesore twice to make him go away. And because your camera has a cooldown, this can lead to a deadly combo with Grunkussy. You'll need to make absolutely sure he's not in the hall when you go to flash eyesore. What about the owl? I hear you asking. Well, a better question would be, what about the beaver? Better yet, how about both of them, because they're both here in this game merged together as one in the form of the bee-vowel. Talk about a freak of nature, am I right? Chat, if I ever end up looking like this freak, please pull the plug, I won't be mad. Anyways, the bee-vowel starts at 2 AM and will appear on camera 3 in the hot tub. He will gradually climb out of the tub and crawl into your vent. This brings up the other side of your office where you can actually see the vent. This vent functions the exact same way the other door does. When you know the bee-vowel is in the vent, all you have to do is flash him with your camera and he'll go away. But this does lead to a split path that you'll have to watch just as much as the door path, which can become stressful as the night progresses. Finally, we have to talk about Golden Flumpty, who is just as uneventful as he was in the last two games. When you see him on your cameras, you can't pull down the camera unless you switch to another camera he isn't on. Otherwise, he kills you. And that's all the threats. Survive until 6 AM and the final game in the Flumpty's franchise is over. In all honesty, I think this game isn't nearly as good as Flumpty's 2. I think that might be because of the fact that Jonachrome... Huh? What? What about Flumpty? I didn't talk about him? Oh, yeah, about that. Flumpty is pretty pissed that you survived as long as you should have, and is even more pissed at his friends for not being able to kill you. Being a god, Flumpty sets the time back to 12 AM, murders all of his friends, and comes to get you himself. I lied. We're not even close to being done. Let's talk about this game's second night, Flumpty Night. You'll immediately notice some new stuff, but I'll talk about them as they become important. In this night, after killing all his friends, Flumpty transcends space and time and is able to morph his body and appear in multiple places at a time. He replaces all of his friends and takes a majority of the mechanics of the night. Let's go over each Flumpty clone together. It can get a bit confusing, and this night is a clusterfuck, but I'll hold your hand and explain everything as best I can. And let me tell you, my palms are clammy. The first clone to talk about is Another Flumpty. Yes, his name is literally, quote, Another Flumpty, end quote. This guy is the exact same as Birthday Boy Blam. Fireside Flumpty replaces the Red Man. Spider Flumpty, aka fucking animated Flumpty, again, that is literally his name, replaces the bee-vowel. But something cool I want to mention about Spider Flumpty is that he is gorgeously animated. Like, look at his animation when he crawls through the vent. It's gorgeous. Now we need to talk about the Flumpty clones that have their own mechanic in this game. Except not really. All-Seeing Eye Flumpty acts exactly like Grunkfuck does in Flumpty's 2. On camera 6, he'll have a patience timer, and when it reaches 0, he'll appear in your office through a hole in your wall. Also, you'll notice on this night that an exposure meter literally slides in from the side of the screen during the night, and All-Seeing Eye Flumpty will increase it. You get rid of him by flashing your camera at him. This night is about to get a lot more insane, I promise. Flumpty.exe replaces what the Red Man does from Flumpty's 2. Occasionally, a program will appear on your camera, and if you don't cancel it in time, then it's time for an ass-eating buffet. Shadow Flumpty works just how Grunkinky does in Flumpty's 1. The more you lower your camera, the further and further through positions he gets in your office. Lower it too many times, and he's gonna go spelunking in your asshole. I'm talking pounding ass pickles. Door Flumpty is where the 2 extra doors on your office come into play. He'll appear on either camera 8A or camera 8B. You can stop him by turning on your laser doors to keep him out. Also, you'll notice you have door power at the top of your screen, so just something else you'll need to keep track of. Are you stressed yet? We're not done yet. While on your camera, sometimes you'll notice something really cool. Flumpty will fucking move the cameras 8A and 8B around to change which door that Door Flumpty attacks from. The first time I saw this while playing, I was freaking out. It's honestly such a cool idea that I've never seen done before. Finally, we have to talk about Virtual Boy Flumpty. Once 3 AM hits, if you look at your camera, you'll see a new section of the map that was never there before slowly lower from the top of the screen and add 2 new cameras to the game for you to keep track of. I want you to keep in mind, all the other bullshit I've already mentioned is still happening right now. Virtual Boy Flumpty will make his way to camera 10, which you'll see has a door power switch. If you let Virtual Boy Flumpty get into this room, he will flip the switch, permanently turning off the laser doors you use to keep Door Flumpty out. So how do you stop Virtual Boy Flumpty? Well, this is really awesome. You have to close another set of doors on the fucking cameras. I swear to God I'm smoking crack because this is insane. There is actually so much shit going on this night. It's so much fun to play once you get into a groove. This is something that Jonachrome does that not many other FNAF creators can replicate. Although all of this is happening at the same time, you will almost never feel like completing it is based on luck. Everything flows together so smoothly, it's just super fun to play. Midway through 4 AM, a new song will start playing and the true boss fight begins. This final stretch is so much fun. When the song starts playing, you'll notice every single bit of your UI start to change to completely random intervals constantly. However, all of the systems still work. Sure, you can't visually see where your thermometer is at, but it's still decreasing and you will still have to manage it. Flumpty sings a little song, and if you manage to get to 6 AM, the game truly ends. We get one last final cutscene where Flumpty finally lets us leave, and we see what the world has become while we've been trapped with him. Nothing but a wasteland, and we begin to question if escaping was even worth it at all. And the One Night at Flumpty's universe comes to a close. One Night at Flumpty's was one of the earliest FNAF fan games made, and I personally think it still holds up as one of the best in the world. Each game got better than the last, which is something that sadly doesn't happen with most series. I'm very glad that Jonachrome had such good attention to detail to make sure that the games never got stale. As much as I'd love to see more games from the Flumpty's franchise, I think it's best that 3 remains the final game, and I think Jonachrome thinks that way too. Flumpty's 3 finally showed us the extent of Flumpty's power with an amazing boss battle at the end, and he even honored his word by letting you leave once you beat him. This is such an incredible ending to such an incredible game, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I think One Night at Flumpty's is as close to perfection as a FNAF game can be, and it truly shows. But of course, with the good comes the bad, and it's time to talk about Jonachrome himself and the accusations that were thrown at him. 8 days after the release of One Night at Flumpty's 3, a user on Twitter posted a twit longer stating the following. Hello, my name is unimportant in this matter and I'd rather stay anonymous. I love this community. I absolutely have been a part of the FNAF fandom ever since 2014. The point of this is to try to make it safer for everyone and minors. Don't go attacking Scott over this. He had absolutely no way of knowing who Jonachrome really is. I also strongly insist that minors stay within their age groups when meeting friends in the same fandom online, whether artists or not. With that said, this is my testimony coming clean about Jonachrome. After seeing the release of One Night at Flumpty's 3 and how Jonachrome has insisted on staying within the community and fanverse, I cannot stand by and allow him to continue being within this fandom, and I really should have come forward much earlier when I initially found out. I was involved with plenty of his group DMs from 2016 to 2018. A girl by the name of Emily was 13 to 14 at the time, and he came all out about his relationship with her. Within group DMs we've had, Jonachrome was already in his 20s. Charges cannot be pressed as Emily would need to do it herself as she would now be 19. I have evidence to prove this with links to all of it, and witness statements, and messages from Jonachrome himself. This man should not be praised at all, and I hope this helps people see him for what he really is, and why he should be removed altogether from any community he has a high stance in. It can be gathered that Jonachrome stated he was dating this girl, but was not going to do anything sexual until she was of legal age, which some would constitute as grooming. In my personal opinion, none of that is as damning as John's own messages. In one message, he flat out admits his plan to marry Emily, who, keep in mind, is a child. Jonachrome also mentioned how they'd been dating for 2.5 years, and considering how she had her date of birth set at 2002, this would have made her about 14 years old when they started dating. It's also very clear that Jonachrome knew that what he was doing was wrong, as in 2017 he was very concerned about the net neutrality laws, which he thought would cause conflict with his being able to communicate with her. The twitlonger wasn't up for long when Jonachrome responded. The title of his response stated that both he and Emily knew that this would happen at one time or another. His response reads, "Well, if my statement means anything, here it goes. I'm not a child groomer and I'm not a pedophile. Plain and simple. I wouldn't dream of manipulating or abusing or exploiting anyone, much less minors. And the twitlonger has no evidence to suggest that I did. It comes across as spiteful to me more than it comes across as a post made out of legitimate concern for anyone's safety. That said, I can't deny that the screenshots are real. When Emily and I met, dating wasn't even a consideration for obvious reason. We were friends who got along really well. My first relationship was with someone my age, which only lasted a few months because we didn't communicate very well. That was when I started questioning what was really important in a relationship and what actually makes two people compatible. I realized that Emily and I share the same religious beliefs, we have similar sense of humor, there's a lot of overlap in our interests and hobbies, and we could both comfortably talk about a lot of things. We both felt like maybe we were meant to be together and were just born at the wrong times. We started talking, making it clear right away that there would be nothing sexual about our conversations and that we wouldn't meet in person until she was at least 18. We enjoyed each other's company, just talking and hanging out. Occasionally we'd watch movies together. For a long time, I didn't see the harm in it. I always put her needs before my own, always claiming to do what was best for her, and in a way, I thought I was saving her from experiencing the same heartbreak I did. This year, 2021, would have been the year we met in person, with her age at 19. But this was also when I learned she was starting to have doubts about our relationship. She knew I didn't mean any harm, while also saying I had effectively prevented her from exploring other romantic options by approaching her when I did. I'd like to say I knew better, but until that moment, I kinda didn't. I'd thought I'd done everything right, and I gambled on the assumption that if we were meant to be together, it wouldn't have mattered in several more years. But the reality is, I didn't give her enough time to grow, and I shouldn't have even entertained the idea. It's a mistake I've made the one time, and I'll never make it again for as long as I live. For anyone who wishes to hear the victim side of the story, Emily and I are on good terms, and she's planning on making her own response to this as soon as she can. Regardless, I was wrong for pursuing a relationship with her. I can't change the past, but I hope that my story can at least serve as an example for others. Please, whether you're an adult or a minor, don't make the same mistake I did. You might have the best intentions and the utmost confidence in a potential relationship with someone out of your age range, and you might not see any red flags, but that's no excuse. It's not worth it. Minors should be especially careful in an online space because there are people out there who want to take advantage of it. This could have ended a lot worse. Stay safe. Later after that, Emily responded herself, and her response reads, "Jonachrome is not guiltless in this, as I'm an adult now, I'm completely aware of that. But he is genuinely a kind-hearted person who just did something to himself that he shouldn't have. As a minor at the time, of course I was super dumb and naive, but as an adult, Jonachrome was 100% responsible for his actions. He has apologized to me several times, and I truly still believe he's a good person. We even talk on good terms even though we're separate. But he has recognized that he fucked up. So please, as the victim, leave the man alone. Let me clarify. He has never tried to solicit anything from me. He has never asked me to do anything I didn't want to. It was not good to consider us having a romantic relationship when I was very explicitly not old enough. But keep in mind, we've always been friends. Jonachrome is easygoing, fun to talk to. We used to watch movies together and talk about what we liked about them. We used to draw cute pictures for each other. We used to talk about the games we'd like. Morally, it was wrong to have romance between us, but it was innocent too. To say that it was grooming is where it becomes gray, because I feel like it was definitely unintentional somehow. That sounds like I'm confused, but I know why that is. If he had malice intent, he would have been much more persistent than he was. But no, he's not dangerous whatsoever. If Jonachrome attempts something like this again, yeah, I don't think I could trust him. He has done something awful, but that doesn't mean he himself is awful. What matters is how he moves on. If he's learned from this to know not to go any further from what he did to me. I was the one who confronted him about how a relationship would cause too many problems as an adult, and that's why I broke ties. Over those 6 years, I can say confidently that I care about the man's well-being. I don't want him to suffer. Let me say this again. Legally, he has not committed any crime. He's shown no clear intent to harm me, nor has he sent any harmful content to a minor. He is innocent in that respect, but that doesn't mean I'm excusing it. I'm just saying I, the victim, am okay. I'm also aware that no sexual stuff until legal is wrong and gross, because that does constitute as grooming. But there was still genuinely a relationship between us. Not romantically, but a friendship that we had. I can confidently say Jonachrome was a good friend. Yes, there was romance. It wasn't good by any means. He and I both knew there was something wrong with it, but I tried to pretend that it wasn't there. But please do not harass him. I can tell he's doing better because he talked to me before this mess got out. As for the person who exposed Jonachrome, I do not wish to be involved in this. I do not care about this anymore. I've moved on and so has he. If I am his only victim, then don't make any more accusation. I know this situation better than anyone. To everyone, don't say, I'm sorry this happened to you, because Jonachrome is already sorry, and to me, that's enough. I don't need your sympathy. Spread my response so people know what actually happened. As an adult, I'm not pressing any charges against Jonachrome, and I truly hope he's living his best life. He's been seeking therapy, and I do hope he'll make it out alive in this. His multiple apologies to me are proof of his self-improvement. I'm hoping this is enough. I do not want to make another statement, and frankly, I'm pissed that it even came out because he's hopefully not going to do this again, and I'm not traumatized from it. If he does it again, go ahead, talk about it. Otherwise, leave us alone. Jonachrome eventually made one more statement, which is way too long for me to cover in this video, but he basically says that he didn't groom Emily, because grooming requires sexual intent, which he claims he never had while in the relationship. John had been gone for years, but has actually, as of writing this, released a video on his gaming channel 3 weeks ago. He says he's been in therapy and is looking forward to working on more projects. As far as I'm aware, we still haven't heard from Emily or the anonymous person who brought this to light, but everyone has seemed to move on and they have accepted their faults and took accountability. While what Jonachrome did was wrong, no doubt about it, I truly think he's good at heart. I and many others all hope that this was a one-time thing, and I hope that this was a very clear wake-up call to never do something like this again, and it appears that that is the case. I and many others are excited to see what Jonachrome has in store for us, even if it has nothing to do with the One Night at Flumpty's series. One Night at Flumpty's is truly an amazing game, made by someone with a regrettable past. Even if you choose to not follow Jonachrome anymore, these games are a perfect example of being able to separate the art from the artist, and recognize that Jonachrome made some terrible decisions, but at the end of the day, the work he produced is something that will likely never be able to be replicated again. But that's all I have to say about One Night at Flumpty's. Let me know what you think about these games in the comments below. In my Rainbow Friends video, I asked you all what your favorite Roblox horror game was and why. My favorite comment is this one by Ryko Janes. They go into deep detail about why they liked Pressure, and I don't have the time to read the whole comment, but I recommend you do. I've heard that call to actions actually cause people to subscribe, so we're gonna try it for the first time on this channel. Subscribe to the channel right now to be considered the Sigma Goon God, and like the video even though it doesn't affect the performance of the video at all. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching. I've been Dexter, and I'll see you all in the next video. See ya!